All right, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council meeting for May 7th to order. Would our secretary please take roll call?
Happy to do so. I'm going to note that we are starting the meeting at 6:01 p.m. So, Councilmember Mayor.
Here.
Councilmember
Present.
Lewis.
Here.
Councilmember Hess.
Here.
Chair Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Hayward.
Here.
Councilmember Youngling.
Here.
And Councilmember Finley.
Here.
Noted that Councilmember Finley is remote. And I am member serving as Secretary Shpak. We're here. Ready to go.
Thank you. We have an agenda. We have a quorum, so we will move forward to our next item. Item 2, approval of the agenda. Everyone should have received it. Entertain any additions, deletions. If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Kevin, I have a couple additions.
Okay.
Actually, 3 to items in correspondence. There were a couple emails, one distributed by Councilmember Finley, another by Councilmember Lewis regarding the Bower Park update. These were both on May 2nd. And then Councilmember Hess sent around a note regarding website and Facebook notices for this meeting. That was on May 4th. If it's okay, I'll add those to the agenda.
Okay. Any other additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended.
Moved by Councilmember Youngling, and the second, you can't because you're an alternate.
That's right.
You're serving.
I'll second.
Councilmember Mayor seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, for those that next is the approval of the minutes for the April 2nd, 2025 regular meeting. Is there any additions, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lewis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mayor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have 1, 2 abstentions because Councilmember Finley and Councilmember Evans were not present at that meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, correspondence and presentations. Everyone should have received all the correspondence. Any comments, questions? If nothing, we will move on. They are receiving file.
So, Mr. Goff is on. Presentation.
Okay, we do have one presentation tonight. Mr. Goff from CalTrans District 1. Don, can you cue him up?
We can start talking.
Okay. And this is so Mr. Goff.
Yeah, hi, I'm Trevor Goff. I'm a branch chief for emergency management, also the project manager for all emergency projects here in District 1. Yeah, and I was here to give an update for the China Gulch emergency project. I know some have reached out, have some questions about this location on it's Min 1 post mile 0.6. And I'm happy to say that we got approval to proceed with the emergency project for $9.9 million. The scope's kind of out there. We're at the very early stages to replace the China Gulch culvert. And I wish I had a better update for you, but we're working through CDFW to kind of determine the design criteria around fish passage and fish passage requirements. So the project's kind of really just getting started. And we're completing, environmental surveys, biological surveys, and and on the engineering side, we're completing the field surveys to get all the necessary information to kind of design the repair kind of concurrent with construction. And that's kind of where the project sits at the moment. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, any members of the council? Dave?
Trevor, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the update. Recognizing that these are kind of early days in scoping and getting field data, do you have a sense of schedule, or at least ideal schedule for moving the project forward?
Yeah, so hopefully, I think the field surveys was just out there this week and today, along with environmental staff. And I think CDFW is going to be engaged today and working with us through the process. And I'm hoping there'll be some more. We'll be able to hone in on a repair strategy, in the next 4 to 8 weeks, with concurrent with some field investigations, which you might see construction activity out there, maybe some drill rigs or something for some subsurface investigations. And we're hoping to have it wrapped up prior to ideally October 15th, before really the rain season starts, but ideally, yeah, definitely prior to the end of November, at least the drainage work.
I'm sorry, do you mean to finish construction by the end of November?
Yeah, at least primarily, the main drainage work, out of the channel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When would be the next time do you think you might have a substantial update, just in terms of 1 or 2 months? Should we just check in with you, or you want me to ping you every now and then? What's a good way for us to stay in the loop that doesn't burden your workflow?
I think probably in 8 weeks we should have a lot better idea of the exact repair strategy. There's kind of there's different alternatives. We kind of need our field survey information to complete the design, along with input from CDFW for the fish passage requirements.
So can I tentatively request that you put us in your calendar for the first Thursday in August to give us another verbal update? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, Trevor, for your update, and we look forward to staying in touch with you on the Trent Gulch project. Oh, hang on, we have a question from the audience. Yes, sorry.
Do I need to come up to the speaker?
Yes, please.
Yes, you do.
And state your name.
John Bauer. We have
John,
water main.
you need to be within a couple inches of the speaker.
Like you're singing.
Yeah.
Don't sting.
Not too far away.
We have a 12-inch water main in the easterly part of that fill. And I noticed that the guardrail there does not allow pedestrian traffic on would be northeast side of 501 or Old State Highway. And we all know that things have changed a little bit in the community, and there is now a fairly aggressive park system that's being placed on the old mill site. And many people are going to need to walk from town to that site. And this intersection is right in the middle of it. And if they have some idea, if they can include walking paths or something wider than a typical vehicle path. So this would be more helpful to the visitors that come to our community and those that do use the park and want to walk through town. So I kind of hope that maybe they deal with that. I don't have any idea what the current design is like on the surface. And I wondered if he could give us some iteration of what may change on the surface of the asphalt or the dirt areas or gravel areas around it. Obviously, one other subject is that we have been paying attention to a wet spot on the south side of the road, and I think everybody's seen it. It was worse, but it's still bad. And that water apparently comes down the downgrade of the underground utility district, phone, cable, TV, and PG&E. And the last vault at the bottom is right there where the water comes up. It has also come up alongside our buildings, way above the floor level. And I think PG&E did something to fix some of that. So maybe there's a little more to it here that they may have to deal with to try to get the water out of the trench system in our town. Because if the underground system is spewing a bunch of water, the rehab work for Highway 1 may be in jeopardy. So those are my couple thoughts. So good luck.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Seeing none. Henry.
I would just add, having thank you for that, because having walked from town to the park, it's pretty hairy coming through that intersection, feels very close. So if there were some other way than just walking like around the bushes on the asphalt, that would be a lot better.
Well, I definitely think our timing couldn't have been better to bring up those points in the initial stages of the project. So excellent. Thank you for that. Anyone else from the council?
Along those lines,
Robert?
maybe that idea should be revived about having a pedestrian bridge going across China Gulch there from the community center across to the park towards the RCLC. That was an excellent vision and idea from the olden days, you know, or Evans. Or Sunstrom, I forget who it was, but it was mentioned in some of our early meetings with regards to the streetscape and all that. So we circumvent that Highway 1 Old State Road intersection. But it's a good point, because we see more and more pedestrians want to get down that way.
Excuse me, if I may. There's one other point, and that is.
John, nobody's gonna hear you.
Yeah, okay. Don't sting me. My brain goes blank once in a while, but I know that that particular section of road gets back up quite a bit. And it is one of the two intersections that WTrans had identified on the coast that would possibly have a stoplight at a certain point in time. And I think we just may have passed that 2025. Of course, we all don't like stoplights. And my feelings are that if it's possible, I think a roundabout would be quite appropriate for that end of that road. That is also supposed to be the first part of the streetscape, which they ignored that from Center Street up to that. So I guess they're not building the other part of it. And they're not building the other end of the streetscape. So we have a lot of loose ends that could be worked on. And I would hope that those that have seen the roundabout up in Fort Bragg, it has really calmed the traffic a lot. And it seems to work well. Now, I know there are people that don't like it, but on the other hand, you don't have to stop, just yield and go. So I think it's a very good apparatus to help our community and would be great for the entrance to Mendocino County.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Reminding everybody that we do have an item on here regarding the streetscape, so we don't want to blend comments. So kind of keep it to the topic that we're talking about. Any other comments from council? If not, we'll let Trevor go home and have a good evening.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, appreciate all the feedback.
Right. At the council's pleasure, I would like to make a recommendation. I would like to make a quick switch and have the law enforcement report first, because I think the streetscape will probably be a little longer discussion than the sheriff's report. So if there's no objection, I'd like to make that switch. Hearing none, okay. Chris, go ahead and give us our law enforcement report, and then we'll let.
You can step up here so I don't want to get in trouble, right? So I'll start out with what I normally tell you guys, that from the whole South Coast in the month of April was 279 calls. There were 70 in the Gualala area out of that 279. So we had 3 911 hangups, 6 alarm calls, 1 animal control call. Normally we end up transferring those to animal control unless it's like an immediate vicious dog type of thing or something that we need to deal with immediately. 2 outside agency assists, 3 citizen assists, 10 civil matters, 1 domestic dispute, 2 follow-up calls, 2 missing persons that were resolved were not an issue, 35 extra patrols in the area. And like I talked to you guys about extra patrols or security checks, that's when myself or somebody else says, hey, I'm in this immediate area, mark me here at this time. I do quite a few of those at Bower Park. You're seeing me in the airport a little bit now and then. 2 traffic stops, 1 vandalism report, and 2 welfare checks. It's actually been kind of a good month. I don't want to jinx it. So, right. Yeah. But there's certain words we don't say, right? So, does anybody have any questions of me or anything I can try and explain for you? No? Okay.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. Oh, Sean?
Wow. You have to come up.
Yeah.
I know. If you want to talk to me, you got
We'll
to
share.
Yeah.
I think you said 2,000 calls.
No, 279.
279. Okay, and there were 70 of them on the South Coast in the Gualala area. That's pretty close to a third of it. That seems like an inordinate amount of calls for us, unless we have a lot more population than and needs help from the sheriff's department. So I don't know why there are so many calls here.
I can explain that.
Okay, thank you.
35 of those are myself and deputies doing proactive patrol. So 35 of those are me generating the call saying, I'm here, or I'm out contacting this person, or, it's me doing cop stuff. So, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's, you take your 70 calls, subtract 35 of those if I wasn't here in the community or somebody else wasn't here in the community actively enforcing or checking properties. So that would be that, right?
And we appreciate having a resident deputy.
Yeah, no problem.
Here.
No problem.
Yes.
Is there any other questions I can answer for you?
What's gonna go on your pizza tonight?
Nothing tonight. Nothing tonight. This is a work night. Right, so,
Well,
All right.
well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward, Item number 5, public agency referral, discussion and action for coastal development permit 2024-0040 CalTrans. The committee is Mayor and Shpak. Applicant requested for coastal development use permit for CalTrans to implement the downtown streetscape enhancement project. I will turn it over to Henry or Dave to introduce any staff that may be online and give a brief report, and then we'll open it up to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Evans. We are fortunate to have county staff here. Liam is here representing the Planning and Building Services Department, and he's willing to lead us off in describing the permit proposal. So Liam, all right.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully I'm close enough for this. I prepared a brief presentation for you all. It's actually different than the one that's up right now. So I don't know if
You can actually take that microphone off of that item. I'm assured that the cord will reach over there. If you would like
John,
to take the cord over there.
Do you have the one from Liam?
I don't know which one was that.
It's the one,
this is the cover page right here, if you can see that.
well, the downtown
Not sure.
Was
streetscape
it
enhancement
part of the-
project.
Yeah,
Pictures you sent me?
I sent you
Okay.
both.
Let
in
me
a
see if I
single
can find
email.
that.
Okay.
I should have it.
And that's okay. I think I'll be able to.
But while
Cross-reference.
it's coming up, I just want to
I can
acknowledge.
airdrop it to you if you want.
While that is coming up, I just want to acknowledge and thank members of the CalTrans team that are here joining us on Zoom. And also Nafuli Barrett, the Executive Director of Mendocino County Council of Governments, who's been a longtime supporter of the project. I don't know if members of the CalTrans team want to introduce themselves while we're getting the
Done, I just
presentation.
airdropped
And we have one order of business that I
I've
need to
got
make
it,
sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Robert, because this is a streetscape, I believe you need to recuse yourself.
Okay, are we still
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah, it's just.
right away phase?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I could participate again, right?
No.
No,
I am a
Anything-
part-time or a part owner of property downtown that's involved in the streetscape project, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Understood.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, Henry, you want to send it to me?
Yeah, if you just go to Finder, it should be, there should be. a
It's not on the
request.
original.
If you just go to
materials.
Finder, it should, if you go to your Finder,
Yeah,
yeah, it should be waiting for you,
okay,
the airdrop.
let me check your.
Oh,
While we're
here.
waiting,
It timed out, I'll do it again.
okay. Henry, while we're waiting, Dave, do you want to have staff that's online maybe introduce themselves?
that'd be great if staff felt comfortable with that.
Oh, okay.
We've got people.
Okay, we got it.
Okay, here we go.
Am I-
Sorry, members of the CalTrans team will get you momentarily. Thank you for joining us after hour. Okay, Liam.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Liam Crowley. I work for Mendocino County Planning and Building Services, and I am the planner that's been assigned to review this coastal development permit. So if you could go to the next slide, please. A bit of project history. I'm sure many of you are already aware and have probably been involved in the history on this project, but it's got quite a long history. It goes back to at least 2005. I won't run through all of these bullet points, but suffice to say, there's been several public meetings and several alternatives that have been discussed and proposed by CalTrans over the years. And it's all kind of culminated in the submittal of this coastal development permit, which was back in November. And this image here is just an aerial photo that shows that orange line is the length of the project. So next slide, please. So again, this will probably be review for most of you, but I'll just briefly go over the project description. And there are a couple, I think, changes perhaps since some of you might have last seen this, so I'll go over some of those as well. But The project goes from post mile 0.6 to 1.0, and it involves reconfiguring State Route 1 into two 11-foot wide travel lanes, 12-foot wide two-way left turn lane through portions of the downtown. And you can see this image on the right is the first page of the plans that were submitted, and you can see where that taper begins towards the southern end of the project, where that left turn lane begins. The project would also include two 5-foot wide Class 2 bicycle lanes, 6-foot wide sidewalks on straight alignments, and 5-foot wide sidewalks in certain areas on straight alignments, an 8-foot wide strip of right-of-way on both sides of the street. And I'll just quickly run through these. Several crosswalks, pedestrian activated flashing beacons, a radar feedback sign, median islands at certain locations, some drainage improvements and relocation of utilities. And the project would also eliminate on-street parking on State Route 1. And this is a more recent addition to the project, but they're proposing to install a bioswale near the southern end of the project. And as I mentioned, this is just one slide or one page of the plans, and the other pages should be in the packet that's been posted online for tonight's meeting.
Liam, for the benefit of our listeners, could you explain what a bioswale is?
Sure, yeah, a bioswale. I guess you could also, another word for it might be a bioretention facility, but essentially it's I guess a more natural way to treat stormwater runoff. So instead of sending stormwater through a concrete drain pipe, you would send it through a bioswale, which is essentially a vegetated depression that would allow stormwater to infiltrate into the ground. And I think the thinking is also that the plants that are planted within the bioswale and also help to treat some of the pollutants that might be within the stormwater runoff as well. Hopefully that's a decent explanation, but if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'll just go over kind of my role in this as planning and building staff. So as I mentioned before, I'm the person that will be reviewing the coastal development permit. And I'm sure, again, most of you are aware of this, having reviewed coastal development permits in the past, but I review the project. I check to see if it's compliant with several different regulations that the county has. And I ultimately write a staff report and provide a recommendation to the hearing officer, which in this case would be the coastal permit administrator. And they would hold a public hearing, and they would ultimately take my recommendation into consideration on whether or not to approve the project. And so the regulations that I am checking essentially are the Mendocino County Local Coastal Program. And that includes the county's coastal zoning code, the general plan coastal element, and the coastal element includes the Gualala Town Plan. So all the policies within the town plan and the policies within the coastal element of the general plan and any other applicable codes in the coastal zoning code, I'm reviewing and making sure that the project is compliant with those. And I've just added a couple bullet points here that are basically a paraphrasing of the findings that have to be made to approve any coastal development permit. And so some of these might not be as applicable to this project. A lot of these findings are more common for development like single family residences or accessory structures. For example, one of the findings is that the project is consistent with the zoning district that it's located within. I'd say that's probably not as applicable to this project since this is work that's all within the right of way. But next slide, please. So I wanted to go over a couple key points about this project. When I was reviewing the kind of the history of this project, I noticed that there was a lot of comments from past meetings about and a lot of discussion about the elimination of on-street parking on State Route 1. And so I've just copied and pasted the Gualala Town Plan policy that's applicable here. And it's pretty black and white. It essentially says that on-street parking is not permitted on State Route 1. And so CalTrans is, in the spirit of the town plan, proposing to remove that. I did see that it looked like there was discussion and maybe some prior alternatives that would have preserved on-street parking. However, it was determined that those would require an amendment of the county's local coastal program because of that policy of the Gualala Town Plan. And ultimately, from what I could read, it looked like the Coastal Commission staff who did not support an LCP amendment that would have allowed some off-street parking. And then another key issue was landscaping. So I'm sure you all have noticed that in the currently proposed plan, there's no proposal for landscaping adjacent to the sidewalks and within the medians. And that was something that was included on prior alternatives that were discussed. And so just to touch on the reasons for why that was removed from the plan, it's my understanding that CalTrans is not responsible for maintaining landscaping that would have been included in the project. And usually what happens is CalTrans enters into a maintenance agreement, usually with a county Department of Transportation. And that would ultimately mean that the county Department of Transportation is responsible for maintaining the landscaping that's within CalTrans right-of-way. And ultimately, CalTrans and DOT couldn't come to an agreement on the maintenance. And so that element of the project has been removed. However, I did just want to note that the removal of the landscaping from this project doesn't necessarily preclude landscaping from being included at some point in the future. For example, if an agreement was ever reached at some point in the future, or through an encroachment permit process, there is a possibility that landscaping could be included at some point down the line. And then I mentioned this earlier, but the bioswale was added to the proposal for the project, and this photo or this section of the plans on the right shows the location of the bioswale. That black bar that you can see towards the southern end, it would be where the bioswale would be installed. And my understanding is that the primary purpose of that is to treat stormwater runoff that comes from both the highway and from the Sunstrom parking lot nearby. So you can see that the different hatched areas show pervious and impervious areas in the vicinity of the bioswale. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So the next steps, as far as I'm concerned, is, of course, to receive recommendations from GMAC and any other referral agencies that, I guess I should explain that the county, as part of our normal coastal development permit process, refers these projects out to other agencies that have jurisdiction, such as California Department of Fish and Wildlife or the Coastal Commission. And so the next step, of course, is to receive those recommendations and any other comments that might come in. Then I would prepare my staff report, and we would schedule the project for a hearing before the coastal permit administrator. At this point, we don't have a clear date of when that hearing might be. But I did leave my email here, and I'd encourage anyone to shoot me an email if you have any questions, or if you're just generally interested in the project. I'm happy to add your name to a list of interested parties, and I can give you updates about when that hearing might be coming up. But I think that's all that I want to say for now, but I'll be available for questions, and while you're discussing, I'll be sitting back there. So.
Okay, before he leaves the microphone, are there any questions for Liam from the council right now? Yes.
Henry first.
Yeah, on the landscaping, you said, ultimately, CalTrans and the county were unable to come to an agreement. I wonder if, you can expand on that at all. Sort of what options were discussed, if you have any sense of, what the sticking points were there.
Yeah, I wasn't actually party to, I guess, any of the discussions that ultimately led to that. So I don't have a whole lot of details, but my, I do know that there were several other kind of possibilities that were thrown out there, or options, such as I'm not going to phrase this correctly, but possibly some sort of program to allow incarcerated people or people that are required to do court mandated community service to maintain the landscaping. And ultimately that was determined not to be feasible. And I think there was also an idea about some sort of special district or a tax assessment district to fund the maintenance of the landscaping. I think with that idea, that probably would have been something that the process would have needed to have been started years ago for that to be implemented at this point. So beyond that, I don't think I have any other information, but I will also note CalTrans is in the audience, and so I defer to them if they have any further comments on that.
Jack?
I kind of have two questions. One of them is also about the landscaping. When you mentioned that, as of right now, obviously it's not in the plan, for the reasons you talked about. When you mentioned that there's possibility for it to be, implemented at a later time, are you saying that after the project's completed, there can be landscaping installed if the county, and parties that be decide to do it after the project is completed? Or are you saying that there's still potential room during the, this planning phase or during the project for it to be implemented if, the county decided to? I was wondering, which of those you were speaking on when you mean that it could be possibly implemented later?
Yeah, I think the answer is really both. This project hasn't gone to hearing yet. The decision hasn't been made. So if that's able to happen in a timely manner, then that could certainly be looked at. But similarly, it's also a possibility if the project were to be approved and implemented, and at some point down the line, there was an agreement reached.
I have a second question, if that's okay.
Sure.
In regards to the parking, the off-street parking, I understand the logic, as to why that is going to be eliminated, and I know that parking is very important to the community, and I think there are community members that are concerned about the loss in accessibility to parking, and I was wondering if, I'll defer this to you or any members of the council that might have any information as to if there's been any remedies or alternatives that have been discussed, regarding that, if there's any recommendations by CalTrans as to what the community can do to enhance parking. I know that's outside of the scope of the highway, like if we're talking about other places in the community. That's why I defer to council if anyone has any information about any remedies that have been discussed in the past, to alleviate some of those concerns from the public.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on that. I'll say that for me, the unfortunate as it might be, the language in the Gualala Town Plan is very clear about the on-street parking. I think when I was reading some of the previous discussion, I think the thinking was that there might be that the Sunstrom Mall might have available parking to accommodate people that might be that might otherwise lose the on-street parking, and essentially that the idea is that the improvements that would be made to improve pedestrian connectivity would allow people to easily access the areas on the west side of the highway that whose customers might otherwise lose that parking. But that's really all that I was able to dig up on that.
Katie Everett from CalTrans has her hand up.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Katie Everett. I'm the CalTrans project manager. I wanted to thank you all for having this meeting and inviting us. And Liam, it was a great presentation. We did try to turn over every stone possible for the vegetation. We talked with the State Coastal Conservancy. There were a lot of other ideas that were thrown out that Liam mentioned. And unfortunately, with this project, we weren't able to include the vegetation. And as he did mention, if there is a project in the future that can implement the vegetation, please feel free to reach out to CalTrans, and through an encroachment permit, something like that can be implemented. As far as the on-street parking, CalTrans really looked to address the features within the active transportation grant, working with Mendocino, with MCOG to try to implement this project. And we do think the successful project with the 11-foot lanes and the shoulders and the bike lanes and all of the sidewalks really is a great benefit and will really help out the community a lot. Unfortunately, as Liam did mention, the Gualala Town Plan does say, the no on-street parking. And so that is one of the criteria when we developed the project that we had to implement. And I can take any more questions if there are any.
Thank you, Katie. Henry and then Dan.
Hi, Katie. It's good to have you here. Thank you for coming. Do you have a sense of what the budget for the maintenance would end up being?
I do not have a sense for what the budget is.
Okay, no ballpark. No.
I don't have a sense for that number.
Okay, Dan.
I have a question about the bioswale. I hadn't seen it on prior maps, and I'm wondering, is that within the CalTrans right of way itself? And also, is that going to incorporate things like heavy metal absorbing plants like cattails and so forth to pull those out of the drainage? Is that the purpose of that?
I'm very fortunate tonight to have Gillian Levy. She's our environmental coordinator for the project on the call. And Gillian, if you could talk more about that bioswale at the south.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of the bioswale, I don't know the vegetation that is planned to be planted there, but it is constructed specifically to slow down the stormwater infiltration and essentially capture any toxins that are coming off the road. So heavy metals, other pollutants from the highway will be slowly infiltrating through multiple layers of organic materials, so that it's not just running into the estuary or the creek there. That's the concept.
Thank you.
And also to meet all the standards that the water board is, that we're held to for a 401 permit as well.
Yeah, Don?
Yeah, I think this is a question for Katie. Liam mentioned that there would be most likely a capability or an option to have some landscaping installed post-project, in other words, after everything's built. So my question is, what state would the project be in such that landscaping could be added without it being an absolute major expensive project?
There are areas at the north and the south of the project, behind the sidewalk that were proposed at one point to have some landscape and planting. Those areas would essentially be green areas that would be easily able to be planted.
Will you be planting grasses, sod in those places, since you won't be putting actual landscaping in?
There'll be typical erosion control measures. And Gillian, do you have a sense of the species that would be planted in some of those areas?
We're talking about the areas that were identified for landscaping.
Yes.
I can't really speak to that. My understanding was that those areas were going to have pavement over them, but that it was going to be a relatively shallow pavement that could potentially be removed. So I don't want to speak too much in depth. There is a small area on the north end of the project that is like a small kind of drainage channel on the side of the highway that is right now, it's rather weedy and full of invasives, and we will be planting that area with native wetland kind of riparian plants. So that should look really nice. But I don't know about the plans for the areas that were intended to be landscaped. And I can get back to you about that.
That would be good, because if there's not going to be trees and bushes and flowers, there should at least be grass to absorb water, to give green relief to the eyes from all the pavement, and to be more environmentally sensitive.
Yeah, Melissa, that's a really great point. Where feasible, we don't leave bare soil after construction. There would be some kind of seed mixture put down there.
Okay. Hopefully natives. There's some really good grasses that are fairly short that could work there.
If I might add, this is Dave Shpak. I've spent quite a bit of time and I'm very familiar with the design package and the latest revision from April that shows the treatment for those two previously considered landscaping areas. Those areas will be mulched and then treated with hydroseed, and the CalTrans hydroseed mix is all natives, and they're typically those types of species that are well adapted to South Coast conditions and are typically very low maintenance. So the leave behind, again, is going to have some hydroseed and natives in it, will not be paved, will provide some degree of sheet flow stormwater treatment because of infiltration and vegetation present. So it's an added benefit from an environmental standpoint.
That would be wonderful, because that's actually a form of landscaping.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Melissa. Henry, you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just following up briefly. I'm still trying to think through what this looks like if landscaping does not wind up in the project for some conceivable future. But I assume at some point in the discussions there was a discussion of what the maintenance budget would have to be in order to evaluate various options. And do you know if there's anybody, Katie, who I could get some kind of estimate from on what that ongoing maintenance budget would have to be?
As far as the development for this project, we did not develop a maintenance budget for the landscape. That is something that I can look into and possibly provide you some information. And what was your name? Who was that speaking?
Henry Mayer. We've had some emails in the past. If you search my name, you will find some from me.
And if not, I'll get a hold of Dave.
Okay, it's Mayer.
Yeah, Katie, if as you have time, if you need to share information and you can't find Henry's email, if you send it to me, I'll be sure to include him.
Sounds great.
So maintenance now would be essentially what we already have, because if you've got grasses, then you'll just have roadside mowing and whenever you do roadside mowing. Correct?
Yes, mowing would happen if once the grasses grew to a level that needed mowing.
Okay, so that's maintenance. We have landscaping of grass and maintenance of mowing. It sounds really good to me. And then those places with grasses could later on have trees and shrubs and flowers put. There will be a place for it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Anything else from the council right now? Okay, thank you, Liam. We will open it up to public comments.
Should,
Raise your hand, come up.
sorry. Do we want to do Dave's presentation and then solicit comments after that? As opposed to do comments and then fill in more detail and then more comments?
Fine, go ahead.
Ready?
I'm always ready.
Okay. Did you, Don, can you pull up mine?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just
Oh, no, that's
thought that
fine.
might be more efficient.
No, that's fine.
This is an important milestone for GMAC and the community related to this project, which has been with us for a long time. As a result, and in some ways, been crucial for this moment, I'm going to really spend some time looking closely at the Gualala Town Plan to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what we're being presented with. Ultimately, where we are today is not so much about project definition, although it's important to get an update and understand exactly what the project is that has been proposed by CalTrans to the Mendocino County. Really what we're doing today is advising the county on approving a coastal development permit to build a project. So I'm going to spend most of the time in this conversation about the latter issue, about the real core issue for today. But very quickly, we are looking at a standard coastal development permit. This body is quite familiar with that type of permitting process. The extent here for this project is 150 feet south of Center Street to 275 feet north of Ocean Drive. So that's the extent of the project. You have to remember that is what we're looking at. The town plan has all kinds of conversation and discussion and policy language about the streetscape being defined differently. Project before us today is in that extent. And this project will complete public ownership of the highway right-of-way. Right now, it's a prescriptive easement. And so a big part of the cost of this project is finally purchasing fee ownership of that right-of-way from adjacent landowners. We're also talking about significant utility infrastructure relocation, a major project cost, and ultimately the potential to improve stormwater management and discharge water quality beyond what's exists today and what is presently a concern to many people in our community. We've been asked by Mendocino County to render comments by mid-April. That's off our schedule. Nevertheless, this is our chance to do our best today to keep this project moving forward in a timely manner, recognizing that ultimately we've been talking about this for a long time as a community, and time is money, and current cost escalation is just out of this world. So the hope is today we move this forward back to the county. Next slide, please. So since we last had a substantial update on the project definition in 2024, that was a time when Ms. Everett made a presentation to the Mendocino County Council of Governments, and we were the beneficiaries of that information. But since that time, Ms. Everett's team has been diligently pursuing final design and also processing conversations with CalTrans headquarters regarding design exceptions that are warranted by local and unusual circumstances, such as very constrained right-of-way and environmental conditions. That's a lot of work. As we've heard also, there's been quite a bit of work in dealing with diligence related to operations and maintenance, the result of which is that decorative landscaping has to be removed from the project. That's a disappointment. That is a profound disappointment. However, there are specific and objective reasons why, and ultimately the county cannot maintain landscaping in the state right-of-way without a dedicated source of funding. We'll talk a little bit later about that in more detail. But again, the beneficiary here is that the project will provide area to treat stormwater runoff that presently is receiving no treatment. We're going to see extensive right-of-way acquisition. The stormwater features are going to, again, be very extensive. All of the existing features, including catchment and conveyance across the highway, all of that has to be replaced and reconstructed in a much more robust and a more durable and higher capacity manner. As we heard before, remnant strips of in the right-of-way behind the sidewalk are going to be made available for sheet flow treatment. There's a bioswale that's been added. You can see an image of that here to treat additional area in the highway, but also off highway that has not received any treatment at all. Right-of-way acquisition is going to include purchases from 17 private properties fronting the highway. A lot of work there. And ultimately, the current project involves construction over 2 construction seasons, up to 220 days of active construction. We're going to talk a little bit more about that feature a little bit later. During that construction period, though, the agency and its subcontractors and contractors will be required to manage construction activities to ensure that there's constant access to fronting properties, as well maintaining pedestrian and bicycle access during construction. Next slide, please. This one looks very quickly at the road ahead. This has not only been a long history of project, but CalTrans in its efforts, frankly, are not done yet talking to regulators. One of the issues is to deal with a jurisdictional wetland in the northern part of the property over by Ocean Drive. That's going to require likely a streambed alteration agreement. Liam mentioned, and also I think Jillian mentioned previously, that there's going to be the need for a 401 water quality certification with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. The purpose of that is to ensure that this project does the best it can in dealing with stormwater management. And we're seeing that now embedded into the project design. And because there is a jurisdictional wetland, there will be the need for a Section 404 nationwide permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. This is a lot of work to get this little half-mile project done. What you see in the snip below, and perhaps is not readable to people here in the room, is that the current milestone schedule to begin construction is in second quarter of 2026 and completing by the end of 2027. So that period of time does provide room for 2 construction seasons that are with an intervening winter suspension during the wet season. Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Gualala Town Plan. I've gathered the different town plan policies that have direct relevance to this project, and we're going to run through them as quickly as we can. The point of which is, it's our diligence tonight to talk about these policies, and to do it in as informed and upfront way as we possibly can. So first up, G251, the objective of this project is to really improve the circulation for pedestrians and cyclists, and to do the best we can within the highway corridor to improve the safety and reduce congestion, essentially improve vehicle movements in this very constrained section of the highway. There's a lot of action going on adjacent to this highway, way too many curb cuts, lots of driveways. This isn't how CalTrans likes to live, but they're doing their best to, frankly, improve things for us in this circumstance. The town plan envisioned that this section of Highway 1 would have, and other roadways would have would contribute to the aesthetic values of the town by providing vegetation where possible. Great idea. And where possible needs to be done. Landscaping within this highway right-of-way, ultimately, if not done by CalTrans, will require an encroachment permit from CalTrans because of the agent's operational, legal, and fiduciary duties to the public owners of this facility. Next slide, please. So this is one of the driving policies that has kind of affected the public discourse throughout the history of this project. And the hope that when this streetscape was implemented, that in addition to managing vehicular and active transport modes more safely and attractively, that the streetscape would also contribute aesthetic values. And so there's a lot of content in the town plan about that. And I'm not gonna, there's diagrams that talk about it, but the subsequent policy on the next slide, please, talks about the circumstances under which the grand town vision could be realized in this streetscape. So that grand vision is predicated on the protection of a corridor that's 80 feet wide. And the main tool to preserve that corridor would have been development of fronting properties and a series of exactions of right-of-way for those developments to ultimately have 80 feet to work with, 80 feet of right-of-way or 80 feet of protected corridor. And the bottom line is that's not what CalTrans has to work with today. Because between the time that that town plan was adopted and where we are today, and where we actually have been during the discussion of the streetscape, is that CalTrans can purchase and is going to spend piles of taxpayer money purchasing a 60-foot right-of-way to deliver the primary transport functionality that the agency is responsible for. Competent vehicle lanes, safe movements on and off the highway, and competent travel for pedestrians and bicyclists. That's the complete street charge for this 60-foot right-of-way. We didn't get the rest of it. And it's the rest of it that we would have used ultimately, ideally, to put in landscaping, to put in more aesthetic features, to invest more in that landscape directly contiguous with the transportation corridor. It didn't happen. And so this language, recognizing the possibility that we wouldn't get everything we wanted or envisioned that we wanted at the end of this, at this moment, that Caltrans would have the ability to approve the project under circumstances that considered the possibility that the half width didn't happen. And that those constraints, either topographical or environmental or from stormwater or existing development or development that didn't happen, did not create the framework, the physical framework to deliver the vision of the full plan. Next slide, please. This policy gets into more detail about what we might have loved to have inside of an 80-foot right-of-way if we in fact could have put our hands on it, but we haven't. 12-foot landscaping on either side. There simply isn't room for that inside of this 60-foot right-of-way. In other features, but we are in this project looking at the feasible delivery of 5-foot sidewalks with a few exceptions. In fact, some 6-foot sidewalks, even broader areas for pedestrians to move and gather and relate to each other. 12-foot travel lanes, including a continuous center turn lane through most of the project extent, as well 5-foot bike lanes. So we're getting the primary transport infrastructure that was envisioned by the town plan. Again, recognizing that should circumstances dictate, the Caltrans and the county would have the ability to move forward with the best feasible opportunity available to us at this time. Next slide, please. Before doing anything with the highway through town, this policy 3610 created the mandate to look at ways to encourage people to get out of their cars. And in fact, this project does that in a manner feasible within the constraints of the real world, providing ample and continuous sidewalks. We'll include ADA treatments for each of those curb cuts to make sure that disabled can move on those sidewalks, and continuous bike lanes through this central district, doing everything that can be done practically and feasibly and affordably within the 60-foot right-of-way. 3612, again, we've talked about this a lot. This is not a this is an unequivocal requirement of the town plan that on-street parking has to leave the state right-of-way. It's, as Liam said, it's in black and white. Next slide, please. The Gualala Town Plan envisioned a continuous pedestrian walkway throughout town, well beyond the extent of this particular project. You can see here in the text, it's essentially tip to tail of the village. This project doesn't go that far, but within the extent of the project, it delivers the best that can be done within the state highway. Next slide, please. Three 616 talks about landscaping. The idea is, again, in the ideal circumstances, we're going to, that the plan wanted landscaping to drive the aesthetic of a place that is surrounded by natural beauty. Wanted to bring that vegetative aesthetic into the middle of the town. And ideally that would be the case. CalTrans, however, does not have access to, and there are other constraints about operation and maintenance that make achieving this particular policy either impossible or infeasible at this time. The next one, identifying crosswalks. Most of those crosswalks are located in this proposal. The one at Center Street is not in the proposal, largely because of diligence that CalTrans has done as part of design, finding that placing a crosswalk at that location would in fact expose pedestrians to hazards due to the configuration of travel lanes. Oftentimes what happens in general planning documents is policies that are, again, motivated by proper vision are found as a result of implementation to be infeasible once those ideas are tested in real world constraints. The next one, 3618, presents a design solution for an ideal aesthetic treatment for crosswalks. CalTrans design team has considered and ultimately will provide as part of this project something that's functionally equivalent to having special pavement elements, but again, within the cost constraints of delivering the project and also within the reasonable limitations on maintenance that costs subject to the highway. But nevertheless, the notion behind 3618 will be achieved by the current design. And again, 3619 is a mandate for accessibility. This project will in fact do that. Next slide, please. The vision of the town plan also anticipated that the community would step forward and take responsibility to find ways to finance the elements of that vision, whether they were hardscape or softscape, whether they consisted of streetscape elements like sidewalks and bike lanes, or consisted of streetscape elements like landscaping. 392 envisioned a mechanism whereby development anticipated in that highway corridor would be subject to an exaction, a development fee that would over time be accumulated into a fund to compensate, to essentially construct and ultimately manage and operate those improvements. This mechanism has not been realized. It is not here in time. It is not here now to be used, and therefore cannot be a part of the solution that the Mendocino County Department of Transportation had access to provide the funding necessary to maintain, enter an agreement with CalTrans for perpetual maintenance of landscaping in the right of way. Policy 393 also identified another mechanism that the community could have implemented to fund not just the streetscape improvement, but other public improvements within the town plan area, which it would have been to create a special district like a business improvement district, or potentially to even have added functions to the Gualala Community Services District, or other kinds of local governance to create a funding stream and an administrative vehicle for public improvements within our town plan area. This has not happened. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to add one for each of those. When the town plan was adopted, there was a vision also for a substantially more development that has happened for a variety of reasons, including water availability. Those fees and taxes, even if implemented, wouldn't have raised nearly the sum that was envisioned at the time of the town plan, as is visible in other parts of the town plan.
A reasonable speculation.
And then the other about the special district is nothing that's happening here precludes that from happening in the future.
I agree. So there are aspects of the town plan like these mechanisms to develop funding to do the things that we want to have done that are presently not available. And looking ahead within the construction period that's identified in the CalTrans milestone schedule to be done by the end of 2027. These are not the kinds of enterprises that can be achieved feasibly within that time frame. And ultimately, CalTrans can't commit to build something unless it has the agreements in hand at the time of construction bidding, because the effort and cost of doing ad alternates after the contract for construction has been let is prohibitively expensive. We'll talk a little bit more about costs, I think, as this item goes further. There are other funding mechanisms out there, theoretically. And the bottom line is we don't have access to them. Mendocino County DOT did not have access to dedicated funding to support landscaping within the state highway right-of-way, and therefore they simply did not have the tool and the toolkit necessary for them to enter an agreement with CalTrans. And both CalTrans and the city, and the county, through the efforts of the Julie Barrett at MCOG, have done everything they can. As Katie mentioned, they've looked at every option to make the landscape happen, and sadly, it cannot happen at this time. But to Henry's point, there's nothing about this project that says that landscape can't come along sometime in the future if these types of mechanisms or others are realized by the community. Next one, next slide, please. So these are just simply run-ups. We look at a number of these policies. There are some that are fully implemented by this proposal within the 60-foot right-of-way, within the ATP grant budget, within the contributions of MCOG funds, within the means available to us, and these very constrained circumstances physically of this half mile where you have development on either side of the highway, where you have environmental constraints like jurisdictional wetlands, and you have stormwater constraints that really do compress the range of opportunities available to physical changes on the highway. We achieved these particular policy elements, all of which are really crucial for the transportation objectives of this project. Next slide, please. Some of the town plan policies are implemented partially. You can see here that, again, these are really the tipping point is if something is practical and can be done safely, this project, CalTrans has done its best to embed those elements in the project. The pedestrian walkways, again, within the extent of the project, are implemented fully. Crosswalks are implemented where safe. So we're going to get a lot better functionality getting across the highway. And ultimately, the design detail ideal of the crosswalks will be achieved functionally. There will be a visual distinction made at each of those crosswalks, if not using the types of materials that were ideally envisioned in the town plan. Next slide, please. This project cannot, and it does not advance a number of town plan policies. But for each of these policies that cannot be achieved, there are objective reasons why they cannot, why these features or these objectives are not feasible, and that the town plan provides ample or sufficient administrative authority for both CalTrans and the county to come to grips with these limitations and allow this project to move forward to at least achieve the functional objectives that can be practically delivered. Next slide, please. And the same here with these items, emphasizing that some of the tools that the town plan envisioned, crucially the funding tools, the town plan envisioned to help deliver the vision of this Highway 1 corridor, essentially our main street through town, those tools are simply not available to us as a community, and they're not available to CalTrans as the implementing agency, and they're not available to Mendocino County as a partner agency. So we got to do the best we can. At least in my opinion, I'm going to advise that we do the best we can and not allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. Next slide, please. Now, considerations, and Henry, I don't know if you want to jump in on this one, or you want me to continue since I've got some momentum here.
But go ahead.
Okay. As I've mentioned before, both Henry and I feel that this project meets the primary objectives as can be delivered within the constraints that we all have to live within. Multimodal transportation needs, again, minimizing impacts to adjacent private properties and doing its best to advance environmental values. This proposal does the best it can, again, within its limitations, to advance Gualala as a place, to create, not just encourage, create features that encourage people to park their car in the ample off-street parking that's available and get out and enjoy this wonderful place, walk around, ride a bike, engage each other outside of their cars, but to do it in a way that also will ultimately introduce a unifying design feature that frankly doesn't exist right now. We have a hodgepodge on this highway. This highway feature will begin to embed, much like the utility undergrounding project of the years before, will begin to embed a unifying design framework to set the stage for future work. Many of us are concerned about our aquatic environment in the estuary. There are all kinds of alarms being rung. There are all kinds of warning flags that are up. And there's plenty of science to demonstrate that these are legitimate concerns. We have a problem that's existed on this highway, due in some part to the highway, but in large part to areas off highway that are draining across this feature, that drain rapidly. We have a flashy watershed, drains off quickly. We have very dramatic storm events that move a lot of, large volumes of water very quickly across this pretty small space. CalTrans has looked hard at the 60-foot right-of-way, and I think they've done the best they can to find ways for this feature to perform better, to do a better job with managing that runoff. There's going to be significant investment in the existing cross-highway features, both in the north and the south. Those features including discharges into vegetated creeks and drainages, as well reconstruction of the channel between the breakers in and the surf market that right now doesn't function well, and frankly, it's geologically unstable. So this project will do a much better job leaving behind a robust, durable infrastructure that can handle these volumes of water. And furthermore, where it can treat that water to some extent, to a better extent than we have today, including runoff from the paved surfaces in the community center, the southern portion of the highway south of the breakers in, and a portion of the driveway and parking lot in the Sunstrom Mall. None of that's being treated now. And without this project, it will not be treated in the future. Again, bottom line is nothing about this project is going to stop the community from advancing a decorative landscape effort if it's able to do it. It's not going to be a small effort, but the project doesn't preclude that. And in the meantime, these areas that are not paved are going to be hydroseeded and left behind with native seeds that are going to regenerate. CalTrans will have to mow them down, and to some extent they'll regenerate. The bioswale will have to be maintained as a stormwater feature, vegetated, but again doing its job as a stormwater management infrastructure. Next slide, please. Now, there's stuff that we can know about at this stage because of the advanced final design and the amount of information that CalTrans has made available to the county in order to render a decision on a coastal development permit. There's some things we can't know because CalTrans hasn't had the opportunity to solicit construction bids. CalTrans hasn't had the opportunity to get through all of the rest of the diligence related to construction specifications. These are concerns that strike Henry and I, and also in conversation with Liam, about next steps. So for example, the referral that we've considered doesn't have details about the stormwater features that will be left behind as part of the project will be maintained. This is a concern. It's something that can't be known now. Ms. Everett hasn't had the opportunity to again, engage a constructor to deal with installation of features as well as establishment period, or even think about maintenance, which are all next steps. But this is a prompt that this community is going to be interested in knowing how those features and this investment will be maintained. We can't know, CalTrans cannot know about mobilization, staging, construction. But we can be is very sure that when this construction is happening, it's going to make a mess. It's going to be very disruptive. And so we would like the county, when it considers the CDP, to consider including conditions of approval that will prompt CalTrans to pay attention to these types of concerns. They'll do it anyway because this is part of their business. But again, this is a prompt to make sure that both the county and CalTrans understand that based on our knowledge of this community, these are things that we really are concerned about and want to know more about as that information is available. Next slide, please. So wrapping it up, and then I'm sure we're going to have conversation and questions. Both Henry and I feel that this is a project that warrants a favorable consideration by the coastal administrator, and we hope that a CDP can be approved for this project. We of course defer to county planning for doing all the heavy technical lifting, and Liam, we're glad you're on the job and appreciate your efforts to again do all the diligence that you have to do, code sections of the science. Ultimately, next slide, we do have a few recommendations for conditions of approval. I've already talked through a bunch of these, so I'll just leave them where they are. The topics are, again, in general, that we'd like to know how stormwater features will be maintained in perpetuity. We would like to be assured that a construction access and communications plan will be implemented as part of the project. We trust that this is not a novel notion, but these are some functional aspects of that plan that we would like to see if in fact feasible. We would very much like the CalTrans to require as a specification that there be some significant amount of coordination by the constructor to engage some of the sensitive uses in town, such as the Forager School, to coordinate with the community center on summertime activities like the farmers market, which are really outside all the time. So that ideally, when construction is occurring to the best that can be, we either avoid or minimize construction impacts on these very much outdoor activities that are happening right in the core of the village. And then ultimately, that people are able to walk and cycle through town throughout the construction. CalTrans will maintain vehicular access. At times it's not going to be easy, but it'll happen. But while that vehicular access is being maintained, we hope that people can walk and cycle through town during those construction periods. And that's it for my slides. Further in the package, I have included design resources if people have questions about specific design sheets. They're available to us. Don can scroll through them and find them. But I didn't want to go through those in detail again unless there's a question that needs answering.
Okay, thank you. Henry, do you have anything to
I think Dave did a great job walking through all that stuff. And thank you, Dave, for all your efforts on that and various iterations. I do have one thing that sorry, I should have suggested prior to this and didn't. We still have not really seen like an exact design for the drainage work between breakers and surf. So I do wonder if we could add something to this that is just requesting that CalTrans consider and prioritize the scenic element of that walkway, the bluff trail, which will cross that drainage. It would be nice if we don't end up making that worse while we're fixing up the drainage.
Okay, there is a design sheet. So if you're able to And in that presentation exhibit, yeah, we got a medical situation. If you could go back to the presentation, there is a design sheet that shows the drainage feature between, it's a plan view. There you go. So what the materials that have been submitted to the CDP include that image that you just had up on the screen. Don?
Yeah, let me give it back. I gotta share it.
This is a plan view of the stormwater drainage feature. I'm gonna get up and grab the mic. And Katie, Jillian, chime in if I really mess this up. I think I got it. There's a design feature shown in plan view between the surf market and the breakers. I'm moving my hand over, and I don't know if you can get the cursor to kind of hover around it to this area here. That's showing that a portion of that drainage from the highway to the Bluff Trail crossing will be reconstructed. And in the daylighted portion, essentially that feature is going to be stabilized with rock slope protection. So it's going to look like essentially a rocked ditch. And there may be some herbaceous vegetation that's installed as part of that to stabilize it from an erosion control standpoint. The extent of this feature, though, doesn't go all the way down to where that bluff trail crosses the drainage. That step over, that bridge crossing, is below this feature.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we don't have a lot of design detail here in the submittal. It's just the plan view. And so what you're looking for is cross sections, Henry?
I imagine they're going to be working with various constraints. I would like them to understand that the bluff trail is part of the scenic element of Gualala, and that as people cross that drainage, do look up. And it's not perfect now, but it's got its nice aspects. And just to make sure that it's not, to the extent feasible, that they don't make some, completely sort of sterile concrete. I mean, I know we have the detail that it's rock slope, but at least from my understanding of it, I don't have a mental picture of what that looks like. I'd imagine there are various details that could go into that. I'd like them to consider it as they're finalizing that design.
Okay, so may I offer you a draft of an additional condition of approval that I think captures what you're looking for?
That'd be great.
So I would add another bullet, or we could add another bullet to that list. Consider scenic value of Gualala Bluff Trail in design and construction of the proximate stormwater feature.
Perfect.
Does that
Yep.
work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Anything from Melissa, do you have anything before we turn it to the audience?
I was thinking about the native plants to be planted in the bare areas would include flowering plants, perennials that can reseed every year, like poppies. I mean, California poppies. I can't see how they wouldn't be part of the seed mixture, and other flowering things that are native that could help enhance and look like very short, low maintenance landscaping.
Okay. So Melissa, may I add an item then to our laundry list that consider including native perennials, including flowers. I'll just put that in.
Well, herbaceous plants, because California poppy is actually a perennial that survives mowing.
Okay, in the erosion control seed mix. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm fairly certain it will have flowering plants, but it'd be nice to ensure that it does, because
yeah,
there are many. There are many.
I don't have it memorized, but the CalTrans team has included a vegetation, a species inventory in their stormwater design for these features, both the bioswale as well as the marginal areas that are going to be made, kept available for infiltration. I just don't have those memorized, but we can add a prompt if you like.
Liam, do you have a second hand?
Yeah, hi everyone, this is Liam. I've got the seed mix here if you want me to read it off. I don't know if that would.
Sure.
It's actually in the presentation too.
It's a later slide probably.
Yeah. So you could
You can even show the
direct to it.
slide.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put that item on our website if it isn't, so if the public's interested in the plant makeup, then they can look on our website rather than go through the list here. But thank you.
Okay, sure. I'd like to hear the list.
Well, we'll send you a copy.
Okay,
We'll email you a copy.
okay.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay, we're gonna turn it. You got another question?
I would just add specific to Melissa's question about California poppy. I do not see that in the list. I do see a couple of other flowers, sunflower and monkey flower. But I don't see California poppy for what it's worth.
Okay.
Thank you. Henry, can you send that list to Melissa?
Yes, yeah, it's in the presentation, but I can pull out that slide.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Melissa?
No, it'd be easy enough to toss in California poppy seeds when that's done.
Well, thank you. Okay. Any other comments, questions from council at this point? We'll bring it back for discussion after public comments. Okay, hearing none. Public comments, 3 minutes. So, Tom?
I'll do my best to keep this at 3 minutes.
Go ahead and give us your name, please.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Tom Murphy, speaking on behalf of more than 1,700 supporters of Save Gualala. We continue to endorse version 5 of the streetscape plan as approved by our community in GMAC at its joint town hall with CalTrans and GMAC in May 2023. We want this project to move forward as soon as possible. However, we are greatly dismayed to see landscaping, which is a mandatory part of the streetscape plan, has been, according to the document, quote, currently, unquote, sidelined due to a lack of maintenance agreement with the county. Landscaping has been a core element of the streetscape planning since 1995, even before GMAC existed. The community's position on this has been affirmed at numerous town halls, at many meetings, and by petition. GMAC needs to make this position very clear to CalTrans, the county, and the California Coastal Commission. There are numerous requirements for landscaping in the Gualala Town Plan that go well beyond what Mr. Shpak presented, which was adopted by the county in 2002. In other words, the county committed to landscaping 23 years ago, knowing it would have to be maintained. CalTrans warned 2 years ago the county needed to develop a maintenance plan, but this has not been completed. We are also dismayed that in its lengthy application for the CDP, CalTrans failed to find room to note the numerous times the community has demanded landscaping in the project. It also omitted the Save Gualala petition with 1,711 names of residents and visitors calling on CalTrans and county to follow the requirements of the town plan, including landscaping. I personally have spent long hours working on with the CalTrans team, local natural plants experts, and the CalTrans landscape architect on details for the low maintenance plannings for this project. Without the plannings, the highway will be an unattractive sea of asphalt and concrete, transforming our main street into essentially a strip mall instead of an attractive oasis that encourages visitors to stop and spend some time and money in Gualala. The notion that this may be added sometime in the future is hilarious. It's never going to happen. We encourage GMAC to recommend approval of this application with the clear understanding that the County and Coastal Commission must fully restore landscaping element before the first shovel goes in the ground. Again, this is required by the county coastal plan and the coastal plan. I'd be happy to take questions. if I have any time remaining, I'd just like to say I have numerous exceptions to Mr. Shapak's presentation. I thought it was misleading on many levels regarding landscaping, and I can't go through that. I don't have enough time for that. Am I good?
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience would like to speak? Is there anybody online that would like to speak? John?
Anybody else?
No, you're the only one.
Well, first, 3 minutes won't even cover this. But
We'll work on that.
you guys know, Zachary questioned the parking thing, and there've been some other kind of, well, why are we taking the parking away? And it's only because the town plan says that there won't be any on-street parking. And that's the only reason. And the reason that I'm here is that we're going to lose a tremendous amount of parking for the surf market and that particular set of structures on that side of the street. Actually, both sides of the street. CalTrans does not own that street. It's wrong for someone to say, come up here and say that CalTrans is going to buy all those prescriptive easements that are out there now, because they have not offered us any money for the prescriptive easements that they have, only the additional easements that they want onto our property. So there's something really rotten with this whole thing. I don't like it. I'm not in favor of it. And I think that our town plan, many of you know, it needs to be updated. It's wrong. And there were promises by the Board of Supervisors that they would fix things, and they have not. And many things have changed in our community in the last 20 years. That town plan does not work. And in that light, it should be reviewed. The public should be part of discussions whenever you have CalTrans and whenever you have staff people. We should know what's going on and how we can assist in making those adjustments in the town plan. It's not going to happen if we don't stand up and do something. So I'm sorry that it was, something that I felt like hours of time spent, and I have never been contacted by CalTrans to go over any of my thoughts. They basically, I said, anytime, want to call me, want to have a meeting? No. And we represent at least the buildings that cover about half of downtown. And we're not being included. And I don't think it's right. And I think this whole thing is going ahead way too fast. It's got problems. There's many more problems. And one of the things that Dave kind of zeroed in on was the side drainage between the surf market and the next door neighbor in. And I am surprised that you guys didn't think about that particular concrete that's sitting there actually does us a favor. It stops fires. And if you put rocks in there, there's going to be weeds, brush, and more potential for fires right between our buildings. And that's only 5 feet from our building. Yeah. So because there was a fire out there in the back, I'm more and more aware of these things. And I've worked with CAL FIRE, and I've been on fires with them. I understand them very well. And I think Dave Shpak knows that I do. And I try my hardest to protect communities, including this group of buildings up here. And without a good town plan, it is not going to work. And what CalTrans is doing is not correct in my mind. So if you don't mind, I'd like to see some more meetings. I'd like to be part of this, not have people from outside town who have other alternative schedules that don't really fit well in our community. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, John. Robert, no, Robert,
I will be speaking at the.
No, I would respectfully ask that if you have some comments, go ahead and put them in writing, send them to me. We'll forward it to county council to make sure that they're appropriate.
Very useful. Chair.
No, I really can't, because you have to recuse yourself
I know.
from any discussion on this. So if you want to offer something,
Discussion.
excuse
I'm
me.
speaking as a citizen.
You can't agree this is First Amendment, right?
And all I want to say is that I've been a part of 2 other infrastructure projects, and I want to see this go forward in the best way possible. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay,
If
well,
you don't want me to come up to the podium to say that, you know, the Gualala Town Plan was based upon the opinions and input from many of us concerned citizens that were partaking before John Bauer's times, when we're talking about the sewer system, when we're talking about the undergrounding project. We have to respect that. Gualala deserves this project, and as was stated, hopefully it doesn't preclude us from being able to get some of the landscaping we've talked about, but we need this project. Gualala deserves this project, and let's see, we've delayed it long enough.
thank you.
That's all I want to say, Kevin. I don't think that's okay.
I appreciate it. Okay, is there anybody online who wants to make a comment?
I don't see any hands up.
Okay, we're gonna close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Henry?
Yeah, I do just, sorry, on the landscaping again. One thing that I would like to clarify. So, in terms of why the county can't or won't enter into a maintenance agreement, is that a lack of funds, or is there a rule that they can't do it without a dedicated funding stream? Because those are different.
Let me attempt to answer, and if I get it wrong, I hope Nafili will raise her hand and correct me. Current funding, the funding for typical activities by the County Department of Transportation does not provide funding for landscaping maintenance. And certainly not funding to maintain landscaping outside of the county right of way. In order to maintain right of way within the landscaping within the CalTrans right of way, a dedicated funding source would have to be made available,
So,
and that doesn't exist.
so it's not something that they could spend general fund money on? Is there some policy that says they can't?
Nafili Barrett is there. Why don't we
Yeah.
let her address this issue?
Nafili, can you chime in?
Yeah, I mean, what Dave said is correct about county DOT not being able to spend county road money on maintaining a state highway. That is correct. So for them to be able to do it, it'd have to be some funded in some other way. I don't believe that the county discussed the option of using general funds for that maintenance. I will say that, the cost of the maintenance is more than just, a few hours here and there to actually spend maintaining the road. But I wanted to add, there's also a significant bonding expense that CalTrans requires as part of their agreement. So when it was discussed, when the county made it clear, when county DOT made it clear that they were not able to do it, different ideas were talked about, such as different organizations taking it on. And that was one of the big drawbacks that, didn't allow something like that to move forward. So.
Do you have a sense of what the dollar figures are for any of this, for the bonding requirement or for the ongoing maintenance budget?
I don't. I think I heard a number at one point. We had actually, suggested maybe the Gualala, utilities or community services would be able to do it. And it was, beyond what they would be able to afford. But I don't have an exact number for you.
Do you think after this meeting, would you mind sending me whatever best guess you have access to?
Yeah, maybe I'll ask CalTrans to do it because it is their requirement.
Katie, would you mind, sending me whatever you have for what the bonding requirement would be?
I sure can. And that was Henry, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayer.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, bring it back to council. The recommended action is to discuss proposal, determine comments, recommendations to Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. What is the pleasure of the council? Henry?
Mr. Murphy was suggesting that we insist upon the restoration of landscaping before a shovel hits the ground. I'm not in favor of conditioning our approval on that because I'm worried about the operational concerns and how likely we are to get that. But that doesn't mean we can't formally request it as part of our approval. We can't make that a recommendation that the county figure it out. I know they have tried in various ways. I am interested to find out that general fund money was not considered as part of this. There's money that exists. Obviously, it is not enough money for county priorities. The article in the ICO from just a few weeks ago about another $17 million shortfall, and we all know what the county's finances are like. So I do not have a rosy view of the likelihood of the county spending general fund money on this. That doesn't mean we can't tell them we want them to. Again, I do not want to condition our approval on that. But to have a formal request as part of this, as GMAC weighing in, saying, we want you to do it, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. I think we all want them to do it. Formalizing that doesn't necessarily seem that likely to be effective, but seems reasonable.
Right, we have someone, Don?
Natalie Barrett has her hand up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that if you are including that request in your approval, you could include CalTrans in that not limit it to the county, figure out a way to do it, but the county and CalTrans. Because CalTrans might have, it might be equally possible for CalTrans, and I'm not really saying it's possible for either of them, but it might be equally possible for CalTrans to overcome their limitations that are currently prohibiting them to maintain landscaping as it would be for the county to take that on.
Can I ask you a question while we have you online? Would there be a possibility of entering into an agreement with a private property owner that once the landscaping is done, that they would be responsible for the maintenance of that landscaping?
My understanding is that is not possible, but I do see Katie's got her hand up, so she may want to answer that question.
I was able to look up the insurance clause, and it's 1 million per occurrence, 2 million in aggregate, and 5 million in excess. That comes from our template for the landscape agreements. And to answer your question, it typically is a city or county that enters into a landscape agreement. These agreements last in perpetuity. So oftentimes a volunteer group may come and go. And so we really need to make sure that there's a device in place to make sure the maintenance happens throughout the longevity of the infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pulling up those numbers. Could you explain that to me? Like, I don't know how that works because I don't. So this would be money that the county would have to put up front or commit to paying for, or how does that? So that was, you said 1 million, 2 million, and 5 million. Is that? Do we add those together to come up with 8? What?
And those are it's a bonded insurance amount, And I would have to look into that a little bit more. I'm not an expert in insurance. That's something I could follow up with you though.
Okay, thank you.
Just,
Oh.
I can offer a little perspective on bonded insurance for public entities.
That would be lovely.
That
Thank
would be the insured amount. There would be an annual cost to that, some
Okay.
number or less,
Gotcha.
but not insignificant.
Yeah.
And again, depending upon the insurance market, the type of rates that are available to an entity because of its fiscal stability and capacity,
Mhm.
which in Mendocino County's case is a matter of debate.
Yes.
Those bonding costs could be quite expensive, even compared to the actual boots on the ground and, labor and equipment costs.
Gotcha.
So it adds up to a lot.
Right.
And I think Ophelia had mentioned, or perhaps Katie had mentioned, that they'd investigated the financial capacity of the Gualala Community Services District as a theoretical option and found that the bonding costs exceeded its capacity
Yeah. Under current funding.
under current funding.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Thank you very much for putting dollar figures to that. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
that. Any other questions from council? Dan?
In regards to the parking issue, Mr. Shpak, didn't part of that prohibition on parking come from the Coastal Commission as well as the Gualala Town Plan?
Yeah.
And they were absolutely against it.
The Coastal Commission is essentially adopted the Gualala Town Plan as a part of the local coastal program. So they're an adopting authority subsequent to Mendocino County. And given that this plan is their plan, their response with respect to the concept of leaving parking within the project area, even on an interim basis, was that that concept is not consistent with the plan that they have adopted, and therefore they could not approve of it.
And
Without, the alternative would have been to amend the town plan.
they also opposed that amendment, is my understanding.
I believe that's correct. So that's the kind of the anecdotal response to your question.
Thank you.
Can I have 10 seconds? Yes.
I just want to
Okay, please, thank you.
I just want to note the California Coastal Commission also strictly requires landscaping as part of this project. It's a major thrust of this project. In the town plan itself, there are numerous phrases that make it paramount to the safety of the streets and the bike lanes and everything else in the project. I strongly urge the council to appeal to the Coastal Commission to order this to be done. And I think if the Coastal Commission says there shall be landscaping, it shall be.
Thank you.
So I would urge you to include that in your recommendation. But I also want to underscore we are strongly committed to seeing this thing built as soon as possible. I think it's already been delayed way too long. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the people who came to the meeting tonight. Katie and Nephili, Jillian, especially Liam, who drove a long way to get here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Don, do you have any comments?
Well, I think I'll reserve my comments until there's a motion on the floor related to what we may do.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise I could say, just briefly, I support this project really completely. I am disappointed about the issue regarding landscaping, for sure. I'd love to see a solution. I don't see an easy solution for it at this point. However, I am somewhat encouraged that there may be a possibility of post-project landscaping if community can somehow pull together financing for that on an ongoing basis. So it's not like the door is completely closed, but there's some real hurdles.
Can I go around?
Yeah, please, sorry.
I'll get back to you. Zach, do you have anything?
I just have a comment. I find it frustrating, and I feel like that the county puts us in a hard place between it and the community. When we talk about things like landscaping, maintenance, money, we ran into the same thing with Flower Park. It all just comes down to the county is not able to disclose how much money it has. It has not audited itself, appropriately. It's, in my opinion, just dysfunctional at this time. And I feel like it's difficult for us to put ourselves in a position to push for something that we know is not attainable, because it's the county that needs to foot the bill for the maintenance for XYZ, whether it's a streetscape, bar, park, or whatever. So I just want to know if that is a frustration that that's really what we're talking about. It's like county says it doesn't have money. Every time we ask, it doesn't have money.
Okay. Henry?
Yeah, sorry, just to, one more on the bonded insurance, because I'm sure you haven't heard enough from me. If this were a situation where after the project, someone, be it the community services district, a business improvement district, some qualified agency, were to come up with a funding stream in order to actually implement and maintain the landscaping, would that also require that bonded insurance arrangement, or is that only a function of if CalTrans itself puts in the landscaping?
So Katie, another way of asking Kevin's questions within the CalTrans nomenclature is, what would CalTrans require in order to grant an encroachment permit for a local agency to get approval to landscape within the CalTrans right of way?
I would want to involve our encroachment permits to make sure I'm not speaking off the cuff to get you proper information. There's a typical encroachment permit process that would go through.
Okay.
But the bonded insurance that you were discussing, that is related to CalTrans implementing the landscaping, and not necessarily to landscaping being implemented in the right of way?
Yeah, I don't have the particulars on the encroachment permit. If an entity like the city or the county were to enter into a landscape agreement, they would need to have that bonded insurance.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it interests me that you don't have the specific answer and would need to bring people in who are not on the call. So I can follow up with you after the fact on that. It's not, that question is not, does not have to be determined for us to render an advisory judgment here.
So let me suggest, here's the analog is this. Whether it's done as part of this project or the landscaping is built subsequent to the project, the agreement between CalTrans and a local entity would be for some other player than a CalTrans employee to enter that right of way and conduct activities within the state highway. That's what the bonding is for. The insurance is to protect CalTrans from liability from having others in its right of way. So you should likely expect that the encroachment permit would still trigger the same kinds of coverage that would be an upfront element in a landscaping maintenance agreement. The encroachment permit will also require a landscape maintenance agreement.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be essentially another way to do the same thing that has been attempted now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll.
Thank you.
Everyone else had a chance to weigh in, then I'll offer.
I'm gonna ask Melissa one more time.
What's that?
You want to ask Melissa one more time?
Oh, Melissa?
I think I pretty much covered everything when I talked about the little grass areas and flowers and tossing in some California poppies to be really cool. That's it.
I appreciate that. My position is simple. This is something that this community has been waiting for forever. I appreciate everything that MCOG and CalTrans and the county and GMAC and our community have done to get us to this point. And I would hate to see anything derail it. I think the county is expecting it to happen. And I think it's a testament to the hard work of everybody that is put in on this project. I agree with everybody. It's not the ultimate of what we wanted. It's not the on-street parking, it's not the landscaping. But I think first and foremost is people want a safe passage through our town with a road that is maintained and improved. Everything else is a benefit, but I think our community expects a safe road for us to be able to pass through, whether you're a visitor or a resident. So I would really want to see and encourage our discussion and the deliberation to push this project forward so there is no delays and we can stay on the schedule that was presented earlier and make this project happen. So I bring it back to the council for any comments.
Hear, hear.
Or any action.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Dawn, would you be willing to put up that last slide in the active part of the presentation because it has the motion elements?
Yeah,
so
okay,
people
just
can
like-
see them. Yeah, just roll up. One more.
One more.
Yeah, so I'd like to move that in terms of our comments, that GMAC offered the following comments. Number 1, 2, and 3, as shown here on the screen that others can see. I don't need to restate them. Next slide. And that GMAC recommend the following conditions of approval as shown here in the 1, 2, 3, 4 bullets with these 2 additions. The first additional bullet that that CalTrans consider the scenic value of the Gualala Bluff Trail in design and construction of the proximate stormwater feature. And the second added bullet would be to consider including native, herbaceous, and perennial species, parent including flowering plants such as California poppies, close parent, in the erosion control and the erosion control seed mix for the project.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Councilmember Lewis. Any other?
So just to make things clear, the motion actually includes everything up there
Exactly.
as well as the 2 items you just added. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. And the content on the previous slide.
Okay, Henry?
What is the feeling of the council on the idea of adding a request, though not a condition, that the county and CalTrans figure out a way to restore landscaping?
A request, not a condition.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like, come on, guys, try again. I mean, we're not going to say no, but try again.
I mean, basically, yeah, I acknowledge that it's toothless. The teeth that we, to the extent we could put any in, I don't want to.
No teeth.
I don't want to say, no, we're against this without it. Like, I want the project. I just also want the landscaping.
Yeah.
I don't know how much value there is in this, but I think it, I don't think it, I do think it expresses the will of the community and the council. I don't know.
We'll take, in other words, we'll take it as is, but please consider again landscaping.
Okay, does the motion maker accept the add on that?
No, I'm not interested in that. I applaud the sentiment and I applaud the ideal. But it's up to us to make that happen. My concern at this point, given the history of this project and how wobbly it is going forward, because when that construction bid goes out, everything's gonna tighten up even more. This is still going to another public hearing after us. My concern is complicating any of the communications related to this project moving forward. we've been asked to support or not support a CDP. And the recommendation to ask the county to consider landscaping. I don't know how that fits within the CDP, so I don't support it.
Okay.
In other words, we've asked often enough. We should stop asking.
Melissa, I'm sorry, Kevin. Melissa, I don't think we should stop asking. I really don't think we should stop asking, but this project is no longer about delivery of landscaping inside of the highway right of way.
So in other words, don't stop asking, but don't ask in our recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table.
Oh, sorry, does anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Well, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, you could call it.
So and we have an amendment, and the motion maker does not want to add that to this motion. You can make a substitute motion, but we have to vote on this one. We can vote it down. You can add a substitute motion and we can vote on that. So.
Yeah, if you're calling the vote, then
Okay.
you can call the vote. I
So
was
we have a
hoping to have
motion and a
discussion.
second. Is there any question on the motion from anyone? Okay, we'll take what? You got a question?
I don't have a question, I have a comment though.
Okay.
I do understand where you're coming from, Henry, on that, and I kind of support that to a certain extent, but on the other hand, I think this has taken so long, this whole process. I do not want to put any impediments in the way of CalTrans or MCOG or anybody else, which would delay in any way, shape, or form this project from going ahead. I think from our comments, not only this evening, but in the past, I think everybody knows we would really like to have landscaping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear, it's very clear about that. But, to make that a condition or something for approval, I'm not in favor of that, quite frankly.
I definitely don't want it to be a condition of approval. It was
Yeah.
whether it was an attached request.
So I don't know, to me, it's kind of redundant at this point, and quite frankly, given all that has been said and done in the past about trying to get funding for landscaping. I'm just really kind of exhausted with this whole process that's gone on for so long. As far as I can tell, 2 decades. 2 decades to build this little streetscape in our town, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Mhm.
It's really crazy that it takes this long. It's going to be a couple of years in addition, for this thing to be completed. So to do anything at all to slow this process down, I am not in favor of. But I do think everybody knows we're in favor of landscaping.
We'll put it in there. You're putting in all these things. We're not having another request. And you'll send this to Mr. Murphy. Otherwise, you're not on the record. We're not this is not open up for public comments.
We have been on the record multiple times in the past that we favored landscaping.
Are we supposed to be voting?
We are. Thank you, Melissa. So we'll do a roll call vote. Well, do you have a comment, Dan, before we?
I've said what I'm gonna say.
Okay, we're gonna take a roll call vote. Melissa?
I'm calling planting grasses and flowering plants.
But are
Yeah,
you
yes.
voting for?
Yes. I'm
Okay,
voting
thank you.
yes because I'm calling planting grass and flowering plants landscaping, and I'm good with that for now.
Okay, thank you. Henry?
Yes.
Point of clarification, what is this vote on? Is this vote on the main?
The vote is on the main motion.
Main
It's
motion.
motion by Dave and the second by Dan. It is not including.
Okay.
Henry's recommendation.
Fine.
Aye.
You vote yes?
Yep.
Aye.
Dan? Aye.
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
Kevin? Yes. Okay, so it passes.
Yes. Zach can vote on this because, because Robert
yes.
can't. So
Right,
Zach
thank
gets
you
a
for
vote.
that. Thank you, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you.
Yep, sorry.
I appreciate that. Thank you for keeping me on track.
So just in closing, Liam, I'm gonna ask that you do me a favor and do GMAC a favor. As soon as you have the item calendared with the coastal administrator, would you please let us know? I suspect that we may wish to attend, and if you would like us to promote that date here, we can assist in that way. Thank you.
All right, and I would like to thank all the county and CalTrans staff. Liam, thank you for driving all the way here. And thank you to the public and to the council for waiting on this project. But I think that our community, we're going to be the benefactors of it. So thank you.
Here, here.
Okay, moving on to item 7. Public comments on non-agenda items. A maximum of 3 minutes is reserved for members of the public to address the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council on items not listed on the agenda. And the total time for public input on a particular issue is limited to 20 minutes. The council is prohibited from discussing or acting on matters not on the agenda, but may briefly respond or ask a question for clarification. Wow, everybody left. So no public comment?
Depending on what I had before.
Only for non-agenda.
Okay. Let it be noted that Robert Youngling has rejoined the council, and that Zach will be operating as an alternate now. And we still have Melissa, so we have a full council. Old business, Redwood Valley MAC, the proposal for gas station moratorium. Councilmember Hess, your item.
Okay, nothing has happened regarding this because I was in touch with the Redwood Valley people. They are not at present, as far as I can tell, prepared to move forward with this. I think they still intend to, it's just the timing is not right now. So it just, to me, it doesn't make sense for us to do anything when the Redwood Valley is not moving forward yet with this. So, we're on hold. Yeah.
Okay.
We can move on to the next item.
From the standpoint of that agenda, do you want me to keep this? Do you want it to show up again, kind of as a routine item until?
No, I don't think it needs to show up.
You'll let
I'll
us
you
know?
know. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, item 8.2, Mendocino County Planning and Building Services input on determining the proposed Gualala Census designated place boundary. Mendocino County and Planning Building Services Department is seeking final input on the boundaries of a proposed census designated place for Gualala. Mendocino County Information Services will submit the boundary with associated documentation to the U.S. Census Bureau. Okay.
Dawn, there's some exhibits. Okay, great. So you want me to run through a little bit of history to catch you up since you were on vacation?
Sure.
Okay, so really quickly, let me grab a microphone. So when we met last and talked about this a couple months back.
Better say that again.
When we met last and talked about this a couple months ago, and I'm breaking the AV system and walking up to the television. GMAC direction to county staff, I think it was a gentleman by the name of Russ, senior planner at the county planning department. The direction from GMAC was for the county to recommend to the U.S. Census Bureau that a Gualala census designated place be created within or encompassing the geography of the, essentially what you see is the blue line. Nope, I'm sorry, it's the green line. I apologize, the green line. And the objective or the considerations of this green line, which is the larger geography, larger polygon, terrestrial polygon shown here, is it is the union, I think I got that right, the union of existing census blocks within this geography, the South Coast Fire Protection District boundaries, the GMAC jurisdictional area as currently defined by the county, and some geographical features following a couple drainages and then up to the ridge at 10 Mile Cutoff. So that essentially what would happen is that the relatively populated areas associated with the Gualala village and other developed areas, again, within our kind of local coastal program conversation, would be the coastal designated place.
Thank you, Tony.
That recommendation did not include the absorption of the existing census designated place of Anchor Bay. That was not the intent. The intent was to have, in the end, two separate census designated places, one for the historic and existing Anchor Bay CDP, and another establishing a CDP related to Gualala. That's the history. I'm going to walk back to the, actually, do you want to show? No, that wasn't our intent. And perhaps there was some confusion when that information went back, and maybe it's my fault. I don't know if it was my notes or something, but the reaction from county staff, a person by the name of Leaf, what's Leaf's last name? Leaf Farr. And Mr. Farr is the GIS specialist at the county who has probably more experience with dealing with the U.S. Census Bureau and census designated places. And so is the kind of the resident expert, if you will. His response was that it's his understanding that the Census Bureau criteria for creating a census designated place are these two things primarily. One is that a CDP is a bit of a proxy for what otherwise would be a designated municipality. Okay. So a designated municipality, which in that notion connotes fairly contiguous development to a village core or a semi-urban core. All right. The other concept was that the CDP would not otherwise encompass an existing CDP, that these things are exclusive geographies in some way. So Mr. Farr asked that we would have another conversation and just check back one more time with those two criteria now being pointed out specifically, because I don't think we got that information the last time we talked about this. Just to, again, check in to make sure that what GMAC intends is cognizant of those criteria, which Mr. Farr feels are particularly compelling. The last comment made by Mr. Farr was that the current recommendation, which is this larger geography that donuts the Anchor Bay CDP, may not be favorably considered by the census because it is not it is not particularly geographically consolidated around the existing Gualala village. Now, let me just, that's fine. That's Mr. Farr's opinion, and I respect his opinion. He's a smart guy, and he knows his stuff. Beyond that, however, we've all had experiences in other places where a community chooses to incorporate, but they include it either in the municipal boundaries or a sphere of influence, that geography which has direct bearing on the function and the future of the established municipality. I'll give you an example. If you're familiar with the town of Truckee, you know, that village is really close in and tight in the valley at the bottom. There where Highway 80 descends and it comes up to the Truckee River and the Intercontinental Railroad line. You've got a downtown, and that by some interpretations, the geography would be quite limited there because of topography and all kinds of stuff, and intervening areas where there's just no density. But in fact, the town of Truckee incorporated all of Donner Summit, went all the way up to Donner subdivision, and picked up large areas across the Juniper Valley because those were the growth areas, and those were the areas where population came to, essentially the population shed for that village. This is, in fact, the population shed for the village of Gualala. One could argue even Anchor Bay, but we're not going to argue that. But the point is this, that this is not an unreasonable geography when one is thinking about chasing federal funding or state funding that affects our community reasonably writ across the landscape that relates to Gualala. I mean, some would say that we should even be able to go into Sonoma County because Sea Ranch considers itself part of Gualala. In fact, they are. We are a bi-county community, but we don't get to go south of the border. So anyway, those are my comments. Kevin?
Before I do, we can go around, but I have a couple comments I'll offer, but Henry, then Dan, and we'll go around and all of mine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the word encompass, in this case is somewhat ambiguous. In that, I'm not sure if they thought the intention was to include the area of Anchor Bay in the census designated place. And I'll say that instead of the acronym CDP, because we already used that for another thing. But also, I'm not sure if they would, in any event, object to one that completely surrounds another existing census entity. Which certainly that was the intention. So if it's supposed to be a town or village, going as far as we went, I don't know how you define a town. People do it differently, as you say. I wouldn't be opposed to a smaller boundary line. To, for example, one that went towards,
This is
yeah.
the one that Mr. Farr recommended.
Yeah, so that's B, and then, yeah, yeah. Because, so, okay, so the blue line is the existing Anchor Bay one? Or that's the proposal to,
This
or
is
the
Anchor
blue
Bay.
area? Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so Anchor Bay goes that far,
Yeah.
Okay.
Bush is Anchor Bay.
yeah, yep.
This is the one that Mr. Farr recommended.
Nobody can hear you, Dave.
Okay, back to the board.
What's
answer-
that boundary line?
To answer your question, Henry, the blue area is the existing Anchor Bay CDP. So coast up to the ridge.
And the boundary between the proposed Gualala one and the current Anchor Bay one is,
Oh, well, this is it right here, this dark line.
I'm-
The tan area is the CDP boundary recommended by Mr. Farr.
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm not exactly sure what road, is that a road there?
Right
or
here?
a
No.
Waterway?
No, it's not. It looks like a topographic feature
Okay,
and maybe a break point between a couple drainages.
gotcha, okay, so there's nothing there to, okay,
But what it could also be is that's the boundary. This portion of it is the boundary of the existing CDP for Anchor Bay.
right, exactly, no, that's
what-
my question. is-
That's
is-
essentially what it is.
That's, yeah, and I'm just wondering why.
Over
that's
here, I don't
on where
know
it was.
what that is, that curvy line.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why that's where that was drawn to begin with.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes,
You
that's
think it
the
needs
existing
to be
CDP
Anchor
boundary.
Bay,
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to figure out why when they drew the Anchor Bay line, they drew it there. We don't have access to that.
In the fogs of
Speaking of that.
history.
Yeah,
Be interesting to know.
okay.
I have a question.
Hang on, Melissa.
Is the upper limit of that Fish Rock Road?
Yep, yes, the
Sorry.
northern,
From
well,
whatever it is.
the northwestern limit of the existing CDP for Anchor Bay follows Fish Rock. And there are some areas that are outside of Fish Rock. For example, when you get down to the bottom, that blue shaded area takes off to the west of Fish Rock, includes some of the smaller parcelization between Fish Rock and Highway 1. Makes sense.
Yeah, here, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Melissa?
We're talking about boundaries, but what are the actual pros and cons of being a census designated area?
You know, that's a great question, Melissa. One of the factors why you want a census designated place is because you can know the demographics of the community, and it puts you in a better position to seek federal and state funding based on population and their median income and the number of families that are in your area, especially if looking at their designation, how many minorities you're serving. Is it an underserved community? Right now, we're being lumped in with parts of Point Arena, and actually, I think it expands or extends almost to Manchester, with the exception of Point Arena's city limits. So this would put more focus on our community specifically, and would allow us to have a better opportunity to seek federal and state grants to help do improvements in our local area and not have to be lumped in with a larger group of people.
Okay, that sounds good. What are the cons?
What's that?
What are the cons? There's always a con to anything.
There is none. All it is really the county submitting this request to change the boundary lines or change the census designated place for Gualala, send it to the Census Bureau, and then they can update their information and have it available by 2030.
So will it be the proposed Gualala CDP-B with the tan area?
Pardon me?
Will it be the proposed Gualala CDP-B with the tan area?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well,
No.
Wait,
it's-
yes,
no,
that's the proposal,
Right.
from, and
Sorry about that.
just to clarify, since we're trying to figure out what those lines are, I believe the loop, that closes off that goes to Old Stage is more or less meant to be the little North Fork of the Gualala River.
correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, let me go around. Dan,
I'm done.
Don,
Well, to me, it looks like a relatively sensible solution. I don't know why they drew it this way, but you notice the green boundary line. That green boundary line does totally encompass the Anchor Bay CDP. But it seems like that green boundary line should go up the coast north, and then when it hits the Anchor Bay CDP, then it should turn and head east. And then, well, up to where the green line is at the eastern portion. Well, no, it would turn and then follow the limit of the Anchor Bay CDP and then around. So in that sense, the Anchor Bay CDP would be entirely separate. It's not within the proposed Gualala CDP.
So you're suggesting essentially donutting the green line, just extracting,
Exactly. I know
extracting the
what-
Anchor Bay CDP.
This green line should not go along the coast of the Anchor Bay CDP.
Right. Well, one more time, just so everybody can visualize it, Melissa, please.
You want the green
Melissa,
line?
I'm gonna try to describe this on the map that you can see on the screen.
No, I can figure it out. You want the green line to start, right there, and then go up, go east, and then right, and then go there, and then go back out to the coast. Yep,
Right.
that's exactly what it sounded like.
Okay, so essentially donutting the,
No, donut goes around.
Not encompass.
Is that an option?
yeah,
The-
it's an option from us.
The blue line is donutting it. He's talking about just excluding it from the green line, which is what Dave just did.
Yeah.
It's not donutting.
Right, okay,
Ron.
thank you, Melissa. Dan?
Just a comment, there is precedent for having one CDP within another CDP. City of Piedmont exists within the city of Oakland completely.
That's right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
it's not normal.
There's all kinds of historic precedent that are exceptions. There are all kinds of exceptions, so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And that's something that we can grapple with.
Robert?
Well, in which case, if you want to donut it, what you do is you put the green line where you just drew and leave the green line on the coast, showing that it is excluded from what we're asking for.
Melissa, that's a good recommendation regarding the green line. Robert?
Well, I look at it as from the viewpoint of people that live in this area north of the Anchor Bay precinct. And I think the idea of having our GMAC boundary being part of the Gualala precinct is pretty important. I like the tan area encompassing all the way to the Little North Fork as it comes down to meet the North Fork and the main stem. That's all obvious. That's all no brainer there. But this idea of going around, donating it, surrounding it, why not? Why can't we? The only question I have is these other areas going beyond the GMAC boundary to the north of the Anchor Bay precinct. Are those folks that live in those areas considering themselves to be part of Gualala more than they are Point Arena or what? I don't.
Yeah, I think you need to ask them.
Yeah, but we got to come up with a decision here. We can't ask them what, in our historical minds, would we view the people north of Iverson Road in that little area encompassed by green between the blue line and the green line? They should be part of Point Arena, in my opinion.
North of the blue line.
Yeah,
What about the little group?
with the exception of the island,
Okay, yeah.
Iverson Landing there, that subdivision. That's where it conflicts in my mind because that's where we've always had a little problem with GMAC boundaries and things like that. So that's my input.
Okay, Zach, hang on, Melissa.
No, I'm making a movement that Melissa gets to go to sleep because she's not a well lady and she's tired and needs
Okay,
to rest.
thank you, Melissa.
Certainly. Y'all have fun.
Who's
You
gonna
too.
adjourn the meeting then?
Kick butt.
Okay,
I'll do it in your honor, Melissa.
good night,
Thank you.
Melissa.
Bye, Melissa.
Be well, good luck.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, if you could please note at 8:30 that Melissa has retired from
8:32.
8:32. Thank you. And that Zach will be filling her position for the remainder of this discussion, the remainder of the balance of the things I'm done.
All right. Everybody say goodnight, Dick.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Zach.
I mean, me personally, I'm in favor of, the sort of horseshoe bypassing, the Anchor Bay area and going all the way up to the Green Line. It's kind of a gray area whether or not we're defining that last chunk, from Iverson up to the Green Line, whether or not like that's Point Arena adjacent residents or Gualala, like we don't know which of those residents go grocery shopping where, they could go either. And
What's that green line?
I guess I'm just curious. The white area that, is north of the, Gualala proper and Anchor Bay that goes all the way to the Green Line, what is that currently considered? As far as the Census Bureau is
It's a census block.
It's just a census.
Yeah.
block, a single.
So it's lumped in with everybody all the way around Point Arena, all the way up to Manchester.
I mean, I'm in favor of the bigger border. We're at a bigger disadvantage being an unincorporated arm of the county, and Point Arena as a city appreciates more than we do because of that, so I don't think it's a big deal to them.
Okay,
One more point, can I?
sure.
What was that based on, that green line up here? That, was it based on some geographical feature?
Yeah, there's a.
What, is it the Gulch there, Schooner Gulch?
There are two gulches.
So that was based on Schooner Gulch right up
It
there.
had to do with the fire district.
And
as well.
it's the fire district. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
I-
thought the fire district was coinciding with GMAC.
That's what it was.
No, it's a little bit north.
A little bit north. Okay, so it was fire district, that's what it was, I didn't remember.
Yeah, there are two
But
gulches,
that's just-
Schooner, and then there's another gulch above it, and it comes up to the ridge.
Okay. Then I'll offer my thoughts. One is, Gualala's been hampered for many, many years by not having our population duly noted and recognized. And that's a crime. I think that we have two established boundaries right now, GMAC, South Coast Fire. And I don't see any reason at all that the county should alter that with the idea that we may expand to incorporate, or their opinion that we should just keep it in our own little microcosm of Gualala downtown. The purpose of the census is simple. It's to also determine expansion in our community. It'll let both South Coast Fire know and Gualala Community Service District know if there is expansion, if there is growth, and they'll be able to plan for it. It will also provide information for our local water district to know what the demand is going to be now and in the future, and what revenue stream, if any, will there be in that growth. It could also open the door for Gualala Community Service District to expand their boundaries based on the census designated place. I think we need to do what we can to incorporate the existing utility companies, our safety services, and the GMAC boundaries, and not lose this opportunity, because if it doesn't work now, we won't see it till 2040. And if we don't see it till 2040, I won't be here. I won't be here probably in 2050. So I would, based on Melissa's comments and everybody from the council, I think Anchor Bay has to retain its census designated place. That seemed to be a stumbling block with county staff in a discussion with them. That and the idea of Gualala incorporating and using these expanded boundaries as a means to incorporate. I don't see that anywhere in our future, but I do think we need to have our economy and our residents counted and be able to use that for our own money. But
Can I make one last comment then?
Sure.
So I was doing mostly history stuff. I want to concur with those who are inclined to the green line. Essentially, what the census designated place does in our case is it relates a population to the identity and activity and benefits of Gualala. It's not intended to be exclusive. I mean, there's a rule about the way that businesses run that would ultimately exclude from the boundary Anchor Bay, but I don't think we need to be stuck by that. Essentially, we're answering the question, when we think of the Gualala community, who's affected by that? I would argue that our effects go way up the coast to Elk or farther. But again, that's becoming absurd. But if we consider the local population that's really connected to and part of our community, the green line seems to indicate a practical geographic boundary for that engaged community. Over the last 5 to 10 years, the trend in California state and federal grant making is to use the census designated place as the smallest geographic consolidation that is under consideration for grants. And we can argue about whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, but that just simply is the way these governments are going. And so that has been the Achilles heel for our community. We cannot chase contemporary state and federal money because we don't have we're not recognized by this machinery at all. And that trend is not going to change. The machinery is in place. It's now deeply embedded in protocol, computer science, and all the rest of it. So again, to Kevin's point, this is our chance to essentially climb on board. And then the charge for us, my opinion is, who are we? And so if we're climbing on board this machinery for grant making and regulatory benefit, who should we benefit? Who should benefit from that geographic space? I believe the green line does a good job for us. Anchor Bay is going to come along with us no matter what benefits are accrued to the Gualala's CDP. And because it's an existing CDP, there may be ways to trick the granting machinery to consider two CDPs as benefits in a grant pursuit. But at least Gualala will have, it will finally exist. In the world of CDPs, that includes right now, Elk and Manchester. As absurd as that might be, but at least we're joining that crowd.
Robert?
Yeah, my other question was, when I saw the writing from the county, what was their reasoning for not being able to have 10 miles of coast? I didn't understand that.
Well, I think that goes back to Mr. Farr's opinion that that a CDP ought to encompass a consolidated village.
Okay.
You know, a geographically intimately, a geography that's intimately related to and consolidated within a village concept.
Well, he said town or village.
Town, village, some form of local governance.
Yeah, but I mean, there are towns all over that have a much larger footprint, and I feel like that's, to me, it evinces a detachment from what our community actually is. And just the sort of, oh, it's 10 miles of coastline. It's like, yeah, it's 10 miles of coastline. That's the community. We're spread out. We just are.
Let me do this before we go back one more.
Sure.
Let's see if there's any public comment. Is there anybody online, Don?
Check.
Probably all sleeping.
They've left for cocktail hour. How sensible.
Nobody?
We gotta stop sharing all. Oh, there's people online. Oh, yeah, it's just Russ and Michael. No hands up.
No hands? Okay. Mr. Bauer, do you have any comments? No? Okay, we'll close public comments, bring it back to us. Henry?
Yeah.
Then Dan?
I guess my feeling is I agree. I think the green line, or with the detour around Anchor Bay, is a good representation of the community, and that's why we picked it. I would say that if there is a real danger that we don't get any census designated plates, if that's the one we're asking for, that we suggest the fallback of that tan area. I would rather have that than nothing, by far. But there's a reason why we asked for what we asked for, and it's because we think that that's the best delineation of the community.
Dan?
Technical question, as a resident of Anchor Bay, should I be recusing myself from voting on this?
No, you should sell your house and move into Gualala. No.
He thought he wasn't Gualala.
No, you don't have, no.
You don't have any unusual benefit or lack thereof.
Okay, any other comments? If not, we would. Is that you scrolling through, Don?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw the text. If hearing no more discussion, is there some sort of motion that we would like to make?
I'm sure Dave will do a better job of formalizing it. But fundamentally, the motion I would make is that we ask for the green line detoured around,
excluding the Anchor Bay CDP.
Yes.
Okay.
But that we are prepared to accept the tan line, if that's the only thing we can get.
I would second that.
Okay.
But I want to ask again now, the entire green line that we see here on this map is the South Coast Fire District, right?
Yeah.
Can we call it South Coast Fire District boundary line?
It's the union of the South Coast Fire District and the GMAC boundary. So there are areas that are not, that are in GMAC that aren't in South Coast Fire, and areas of South Coast Fire that aren't in GMAC, and it's the union of those two.
Okay.
Encompasses everything that is in either one.
Right, but that green line is the South Coast Fire District.
Is it, or isn't it the union of the two?
GMAC is only blue line.
Wait, no, the blue line is the block group.
Oh, okay.
It's block group 3.
Here, let me offer this, because I remember when we talked about it when I was here. The blue line represents both South Coast Fire District and GMAC. The green line was when we made the suggestion that we go along the blue line boundaries of, and I forgot the name of the gulch that ran through
There's
there.
two, there's Schooner Gulch and then there's another
Yeah.
gulch right up above it. And where the upper gulch intersects 10 Mile.
Good job.
And that was the recommendation that we offered to Director Krogh, and she said, yes, that makes sense, that if you follow a blue line, boundary line, that makes it easy for the census district to draw using that as a boundary, and that's one of their criteria.
Right.
So the blue is actually the GMAC, and the green is the revised, adding the blue line boundary line, because what GMAC doesn't include and South Coast Fire Protection does not include is Iverson Lane, that little bump of community that's on the north side of Iverson and Highway 1. Those are not included in any of the sphere of influences for GMAC or South Coast Fire. So that's why the recommendation was to move it there. And based on our conversation, we said, why not expand it to the blue line of the two gulches? And that was what staff took away from our meeting 2 meetings ago. And that's what they presented to planning and building staff to use as our recommended boundary.
So Kevin, so what we're recommending, or what Henry's motion is saying, is basically the orange outline now, right? Where Anchor Bay
Yes.
is just bypassed completely.
Job.
Good job, that's what I.
Make sure you take a screenshot.
Did you do that in an art?
Oh, no,
class or
there's
what?
some tools here I just discovered. I can mark up.
Yeah.
Can you snip it and send it to me and then I'll furnish it to,
I could do a screenshot.
yeah, do
Yeah,
it.
do a screenshot and then we'll
Take a picture.
include that in our.
Maybe
recommendation.
I'll.
Take a picture of it, I'll take a picture of it.
So
Okay.
the,
Screen here.
Yeah,
So-
that's a big enough screen.
so-
Hang on, Henry, because Dan, and then I'll.
I just took a screenshot.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, there's a blob of a blue line there on the east side.
Right here?
Yeah, what is that little section there?
That's Fish Rock Road down to the dump.
Right. But this is the Little Fork, is it?
Yeah, what is that little area?
This one here, the big one, the big peninsula out here.
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Up there.
That blue.
Take the microphone.
The little blue area, right?
Fish Rock Road goes down to the dump.
Yeah, there's a separation between these two lines right here. What is this area?
The blue line represents block group 3 of track 111.02.
That's so informative.
Guilty as charged.
you're wondering, why is that the why is that the block group? Like what feature makes that the block group? I think John is right that that's Fish Rock Road down to the dump.
Could be.
Yeah.
Can we just include that with the orange line?
Push it out.
Well, so
I can't imagine there's more than 3 homes in there, but I'm just wondering.
the thing is, well, one of the concerns from that email is that the Census Bureau may consider this redundant because it is so similar to block group 3.
But it could, but again, the point here is that we're not trying to deny the existence of block groups. What we're telling the Census Bureau is that there is a community, there's a demographic, a consolidated demography in this geography that needs to be considered a census designated place.
Yeah.
So that their metrics will be applied to that census designated place. Right now, the Census Bureau collects all kinds of data. It doesn't aggregate it on every defined geography. It doesn't aggregate it on the basis of census block.
Yeah.
Or even block group.
Yeah.
Many demographic data don't begin to be consolidated until you have a census designated place or a census tract. So yeah, the data's out there in the block groups, but nobody gets to see it. It's very difficult to get it.
Yeah,
So we're trying to tell the Census Bureau, you know what, guys, we want you guys to do the demography and the socioeconomics and all that kind of stuff. So that we're able to pursue our future with it.
yeah.
So
So,
that's the deal.
yeah, so when your interlocutor says that because there's already an equivalent census geography that would give you the same data for the proposed area, the response is it wouldn't, because the data isn't aggregated at the level of the
Correct.
supposedly duplicative entity.
Correct, Mr. Farr is correct. In theory, the data's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But no agency that's considering grant applications
Right.
will work with a census block or block group. Their minimum threshold is CDP and then census tract.
Yeah, so this is my worry, is that what we really care about are these things that are built on top of the census entities, but that the Census Bureau may not care about. The Census Bureau, if they're the ones making this decision, they might say, actually, what we care about is this a duplicative entity? And we're going to say yes, and then we're going to reject this application. Because they are not particularly interested in what other people are doing with census entities. The fact that granting organizations care about census entities isn't necessarily the census's problem.
The
That's my worry.
Actually, they know who their consumers are. They understand that there's a utility to their work. So they do CDP definition because they want that work to be used.
Okay.
I don't feel sanguine about your perspective that the Census Bureau doesn't care where these lines are.
I just have no idea.
I believe that they are trying to figure out ways for the population of the United States to use the data that they're busy breaking their arms and legs to get. And they're trying to find ways for that data to have utility within the frameworks of other consumer frameworks, you know, whatever they might be, like a grant organization or community. So I'm not saying that there would be a hostile reaction to the big orange line.
Yeah.
Because we're asking for it.
Yeah, so you are not concerned with what was in the email of that the Census Bureau might reject it as redundant?
I think Mr. Farr has an opinion based on what he knows.
Okay.
And I respect that opinion. I like your idea of telling Mr. Farr, hey, we'd like to go for we believe GMAC, based on what we know about here, we would like to pursue the orange line. However, if you can, in your recommendation, tell the Census Bureau that they want the orange line, but if the orange line fails, we will accept the 10 polygon.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. I believe that's your motion.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, it was a big.
Do we have a second?
That was my second for that, yeah.
Second. Okay, I just have one comment. And I'll leave it at that. I have a problem with this recommendation because I don't believe we should give the county wiggle room to say, here's an easy way out. If there is a problem with the orange line, they can let staff know and staff can bring it back to GMAC and say, we tried, but this is what they came up with. I don't want to put the decision-making in staff's hand that says, well, they said no, so okay, we'll do no. I think we need to be firm as a council and say, this is what we want, and not give county staff the decision-making on this. I think we need to be the decision makers, and if it doesn't work, they can let us know, and then we can act upon it accordingly.
I agree with Kevin.
I do too.
I agree with Kevin as well. I feel like it would be a huge disadvantage if we were to, be reduced down to that tan line. And, a clear example I can give, which builds on what Dave was saying about grant applications, the community can benefit hugely from getting a grant allocation for a big project. And, Anchor Bay also could benefit from something like that. I'll give you a very specific example. The company that I work for secured a huge grant to build 2 new fiber networks in Forestville and Jenner. it's technically serving, you know, on the utility commission, it's serving, you know, 800 residences, but we're actually digging through, you know, 2,000 additional residences that are underserved and will absolutely sign up. And Anchor Bay is a great example of that. So if this orange line were to be the Gualala designated place, and somewhere down the line, someone got a massive, you know, multi-million-dollar grant for a fiber to the home network, right? Anchor Bay would also benefit from that, because in that instance, they would be digging right through adjacent
They're
to
not
that
gonna
community.
leapfrog.
They would get to appreciate that whole project as well.
That's a great example.
And it's a really good
Good point.
example as to how we could benefit from that whole.
Good point. Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the table. Do you want to keep your motion as is, or do you want to read?
I'll withdraw the motion for discussion, further discussion. But the filing deadline, this says is May 31. What I would like to know is, let's say we like the orange boundary filed out. And they file that to the census, and the census says, no, that's duplicative. Do we know what happened? Do we get another bite at the apple?
I think what'll happen is there'll be a process. And I would expect that if there's a problem with the Census Bureau, that there'll be a back and forth with the county. There won't be refusal and denial out
Yeah.
of pocket.
Right.
There would be some sort of back and forth. So if whoever makes the motion, I can make clear to Mr. Farr that we expect to be involved in whatever back and forth there is along the way to the Census Bureau's decision.
For a final determination.
Okay, I have a new motion. I move that we recommend to county staff or request to county staff that they file with the census with the orange line as shown here, because we believe that best represents the community of Gualala. Furthermore, that we authorize the secretary to accept as needed the smaller boundary on GMAC's behalf as part of any back and forth with the county. Basically, I don't want to have to come back to a meeting
You want to
if
talk
there's
about
a
this
back
again?
and forth. If they say, no, we need,
Yeah.
this process is happening right now this week, we can't wait for your next meeting. I would like for Dave to be able to accept as part of that communication. All right, then if we gotta take the smaller one, we'll take the smaller one. I don't wanna.
Right.
Have it in our back pocket, but not display it.
Exactly. I don't want to give them the
county
out.
saying we're cool with it. Well, we're just basically, you know, granting Dave, the council's permission to defer to the tan line.
Dave or Kevin, you would probably be looped in on this as well. Either way, we could leave it, say instead the discretion of the chair. But I don't want to have to come back to a meeting to accept the tan line if that's the only thing we can get, because I worry that delay will be a problem.
This opportunity.
Yeah.
I agree. Do you have that?
So essentially authorize secretary to act in GMAC stead in negotiating. In consulting with county staff on a beneficial outcome.
Yeah, probably. I assume you could loop Kevin in very quickly, probably. Probably it makes more sense to authorize Kevin.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah, it probably makes more sense to authorize Kevin to make that decision as chair. But that's my priority, is just that somebody is authorized to take half a loaf to prevent us getting nothing.
Forward period. Okay, does the second accept that motion?
I accept it, yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Is your local coastal plan, Gualala town plan update is lengthy, because we're at the 9 o'clock hour?
No, it is not lengthy. The next GRI update webinar is on the 15th. So if you haven't received the notice, you might go to the GRI website.
May 15th?
Yeah, May 15, 3 to 5. That's it.
Okay,
And then in terms of this standing item, I'm just gonna leave it on the agenda. So everyone has seen this thing that McNamee started.
Yeah.
So it's essentially up to us to fill out in ways that actually are factual for us. And we can do that with every subsequent meeting that we have.
would that fall under 10.4?
If you want to not have an old business item that's talks about it.
You tell me if it's something that could be provided as an update under 10.4, I would rather do that than add multiple.
Carry an old business item.
Yeah.
It's really up to you. I can do it either way.
The old business lets us take actions in a way that committee reports don't.
Right. So why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and keep it under committee reports. When we need to come back for some sort of action, we can put it under old business.
Or new business.
Or new business,
Yeah.
good point, or new business. We can do that. Okay, does that work?
Sure.
Okay, 10.1 Bauer Park renovation. You saw a communication from me to all of you. I really appreciate what MCRPD did, their board chair and their director in supporting Bauer Park. It's going to happen. And it wouldn't have happened without all of you being involved in it, in your communications with the county, GMAC, staying on top of Bauer Park. I think it's something we're all going to be proud of, and we're going to be able to see it in our lifetime, and the kids now will be able to enjoy it, not wait for their children to enjoy it. So I think all of you did a great job in providing input to them. Henry or Dan, do you have any comments?
No, it's moving.
Okay. And they were real in talking with staff, and Dave was there as well. I don't think anybody's happy with the idea that they're going to be planting bull pines, but that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Coastal Commission's direction.
It'll be a mandate. There won't be any choices.
Yeah.
They're planning.
Unfortunately.
Bishop. Yeah.
But anyway, but thank you for your recommendation at the last meeting, and it's moving forward. Well,
Right.
Yeah, we did.
Well, all the communities.
They didn't listen to us nor to John.
Amen. Well, all the community center reconstruction and master plan, the only thing I say is, you've already seen all the letters to the editor and stories in the newspaper. Well, it's all going to come to a head. I invite anybody that has an opinion on whether it should be the project should be a clothing store or a community hall. Show up on May 13th at the Delmar Center at 1 o'clock. Provide any input you want. I know there's been a lot of great input from the community with the idea of buying a hotel or building a metal building. Those are all part of, I would suspect that making those kind of decisions would be part of building a community hall, and you wouldn't buy the hotel for a clothing department. So right now we're going back to the public, asking their comments. Everything will go to the general membership of the Gualala Community Center for a vote in June, because they are the decision makers regarding any type of capital expenditures from the Gualala Community Center. It's not the board's decision. We act on their behalf.
What's the date of the Delmar Center event?
May 13th, 1 p.m. And from what I understand, they're not going to require parking passes, so anybody and everybody's welcome to come. If you have any comments that you'd like to submit and can't make the meeting, you can submit them to the Gualala Community Center or me, and I'll be happy to share those with the meeting as well. Any questions on that? None? Good. Don, I'm a little over. Okay, website, Don, because we did the local coastal plan. Robert, I figured we don't have anything under
Nothing to
economic
report.
development.
No,
Website, social media, Don, anything? Other than great job on the website.
Really good.
Yeah,
It's
What
looking
do you
great.
mean, what do you mean the website?
the one that you told me I needed a friend
Oh,
or
yeah, that,
trying.
what are you you're talking about, the Facebook page,
The Facebook page is,
Your Facebook page. Okay, that one.
this one here.
Yeah, thank you. That
Yeah.
turned out really good.
that's pretty.
Yeah, we got 82 friends so far. We'll see, how far that goes, but it does seem like there are a fair number of people in this community that do use Facebook.
Mhm.
And we're on Blue Sky now, so, all the notices for this particular meeting and links to, some of the materials and also to our website. All of that was included this time on Facebook and on Blue Sky. So it's just another means for us to communicate with the public. I think that actually potentially it's more effective than the website because we post something on Facebook, it gets pushed out.
Yeah.
We post something on the website, people have to go to the website. So it's it's just a better way to promote the information that we want to get out into the community. So
I think it's excellent. Thank you.
that's all I have to say.
Any comments or, okay. Any council comments or, he's not spending any money. Treasurer's report?
Nothing.
Okay, any council member comments, new business on future agenda items, Henry?
Only addition to the agenda is, I have an invoice from the ICO for the ad for the Bower Park surveys. So if we could put that, for action on next month's meeting,
Okay.
I'll bring that. It's already paid just for reimbursement.
The ICO invoice for the ad.
And Dave, I'll send you, how much it was for. So that
Thank
can be
you.
on- Yeah.
Okay. I have one comment, and that's thank you to everyone for wading through some very tough items this evening. We did it with professionalism and dignity and collegiality, and I really appreciate all of you for doing that, and I really appreciate John and Tom for coming as well and offering public comments because we need everybody's input. It's not GMAC's project, it's the community's project. So I appreciate that. With that being said, and I'm glad Melissa was with us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:07.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we have a joint one by Don Dan.
Okay, I'll second it, Dan.
Okay, motion by Dan, second by Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Oops, aye.
What?
When are we adjourning to? Thursdays again, right?
Thank you for pointing that out.
oh, yeah,
Okay,
next month.
What's that?
we're back on the Thursdays in June.